love this intro every time. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for tuning in again. We have Flight 13 today. It is absolutely incredible that we're talking about this, what, 5 weeks after the last launch? So SpaceX is absolutely ramping things up at Starbase right now. Today is going to be a very, very important launch for SpaceX because they want to catch the ship. I followed the chat while I was sitting here. Preparing for the live stream and all the stuff that you do in the background before you go live, like biting your nails and stuff like that. And I saw quite a few people mentioning this. But first of all, where are you guys from? We already have 2,000 people watching here, as I can see, and it's absolutely incredible. So please tell me where you're from. It's always a spectacle to see where you guys are from and that this is from the entire planet. You kind of get lost in this when, especially when you're a content creator, I guess. You focus on Starbase, and there's the chat starting to race. You focus on Starbase and you focus on these American rockets, but it's not just us here in the United States being fans of this. As you can see in the chat right now, you have people from all over the place watching it, and it's always absolutely amazing to see. You look at this. You have everything. You have people from all over the place. I'm still waiting for somebody to say I'm in a research station in Antarctica right now. It wouldn't surprise me. So we have people from all over the planet, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in again. It's rapidly going up, 2,500 people. In the end, before the launch, we can probably expect the usual 50 to 60,000 people watching this together with us. And it's always absolutely crazy to think. Like, I always try to imagine how many people this actually is that can see us on the screen. And if it's 60,000 people, it's like a Super Bowl stadium, or like the football championship going on right now, like the final match or something. It's absolutely nuts. Thank you guys so much for showing up again. Yeah, we can bring up the live camera, I think, to take a first look at what's happening at Starbase right now. This is the view. In the front, you can see pad 1, and in the background, you see the full stack of pad 2. Ship 40 on top, to 20 bottom. Lots of fixes again, because on the last launch, a few things went wrong, especially with the booster, with the hot staging flip. Everything after the hot staging for the booster was basically miserable. And so SpaceX implemented a lot of things. And as we know, since SpaceX released that second part of that documentary, if you haven't watched it yet, first of all, watch the last episode. We took the whole thing apart and analyzed everything. Worth it to just watch what SpaceX released, because it's genuinely impressive how much insight SpaceX gives us into this by releasing these episodes. So if you haven't done so yet, you can go to spacex.com, I think, and you can even download it if you want to. It's very much worth it. And there are a few things that went wrong on the last launch that we're going to go into detail in a moment here. And one of them was the engine startup. So they'll have to improve on that massively. But first of all, if you guys want to join me, Cris and Jonathan are here as well, of course. There's Jonathan, and there's Cris.
Hello, everybody.
So I've been pumped about this launch for the past, I don't know, usually it ramps up a week before or something like that. Last night I slept bad because I was thinking about all the things that could go wrong on this launch.
It's lucky
What?
number 13. There's nothing to go wrong here today.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yay. Yeah. There shouldn't be anything wrong. And we've already seen this in the lead up to this launch. If you remember back to the first version 3 launch on this new pad, how many problems they had during static fires and all this kind of stuff. They tested their deluge system 100 times before the launch and so on and so forth. We didn't nearly see as much this time. They just put the booster on the pad and everything worked. They did a fantastic static fire. Maybe we can bring that on screen. Do we have a clip? It was absolutely amazing to watch. And everything worked. That's the ship right there as well. Yep, the new stand at Massey's that they improved, but that was already on ship 39. They built this construction behind it that is supposed to test the flaps. It's bending the entire structure during not during static fires, or I think not during static fires, but during cryo tests and stuff like that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that went absolutely fine as well. The first time they had a small problem, I think, with one of the engines. They did not release anything, but I analyzed it and it kind of was obvious that it seems to have been an engine problem. So they did a static fire with one engine, and then it took them 2 days. They rolled it back and everything worked out. It's mesmerizing to see. Jordan, one of our 2 photographers at Starbase, I had a long conversation with him one afternoon after that static fire was done and how impressive it is. I have not ever seen a static fire at Starbase yet. I've seen launches live, but the static fires are arguably sound-wise, they're more impressive than a launch, I think, because it lasts for so long. Normally, the rocket doesn't sit on the pad for 20, 25 seconds, or in the case of the ship, even for 60 seconds. It just keeps on blasting there. There's the static fire from the booster.
Incredible.
And it is absolutely nuts. 650,000 or 2.4 million gallons of water per minute being spilled out by that diverter system to protect the pad. And then you see them talking on again, that documentary. If you haven't seen it yet, give it a try. It is absolutely worth it. How they talked about how they can tell how hot it gets. They just literally have different pieces of metal on the side wall of that flame diverter, and they just take a look if they burn through or not. And it didn't. I still can't believe that this pad outlasts this booster on top of it.
Yeah, the other thing that they said in the documentary was again that they said it's built to do this once an hour. This is the mind-blowing thing as well, not just that it can withstand it, but it's made to actually do this once an hour.
Yeah, there's Justin Steyer, Senior Director, Starship Launches. That surprised me as well. I thought that, I mean, if you look at them, Pad 1 was the quick thing. So quick that in the beginning, if you've been a fan of What About It, you remember the days when I thought it was a water tower. That is because it was an omnidirectional pad. And I was like, this is the largest rocket ever. With back then, I think 30 engines or 29 engines on the first boosters. But still, how would a pad even withstand that? And it was kind of like that. It didn't. So after every static fire, even those, not just the launches, every time they would have to bring out all the scaffolding and all the lifts, and you'd see them crawl over that pad like ants to get it refurbished again. After every use, they had to do that. And on this pad, on the new one, in the documentary, they said that it's built into the design to have a launch every 60 minutes, which is completely nuts. There has not been a rocket, an orbital rocket, not even even ballistic rockets. There is no pad in the world that can launch a rocket every hour. That doesn't exist. You can launch several rockets in that time, but with different pads. There isn't a rocket pad that can do this. And SpaceX just built it, and we'll have to see if it actually works. But so far, the last launch worked brilliant, and there are a few things that are still missing, like the star pipe, for example. Of course, it has star in the name. That is going to be a pipeline, a methane pipeline from the port of Brownsville all the way to these pads. Then I have a liquefaction unit that is still to be built, and that is turning it into a fuel commodity that they can actually use on the rocket. And then they won't have the tanker truck problem, which would, like, even a launch per day wouldn't be feasible with tanker trucks. So there are quite a few things that are still missing, but the fact that it is built into the pad design already shows you how much there is still to come. They're planning for this actively. That's not a maybe or an aspirational goal. That is the goal. It's every 60 minutes. What do you think about that, Chet? We're going to do 24-hour live streams, and we never stop because there's a launch every 60 minutes.
What I think is pretty crazy about the booster static fires is, like, in the beginning you can see like all the water vapor, and then a few seconds in it just starts to basically only be the flames, and the pad still survives that. It just looks incredible.
Yeah, you can't. Well, the water is still there. You just can't see it because it's condensated.
Yeah. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but it's just so crazy.
It's nuts. And then you see them, like, after, for example, again, in that documentary, if you haven't seen it yet, go take a look after the launch. They're showing footage from inside the flame trench, and that was after the first launch. And besides 2 spots that I was able to see on the side where maybe they're even going to fix those, because when you see a dark spot after a launch, you know there wasn't any water there or not enough. The flames went through to the material, to the steel that they built this out of, and you don't want that, because over time it'll eat through. Even if you can fix it, if you want to launch every 60 minutes, you do not want to see this. So there are a few things that they can still improve, but it looked like there wasn't, besides those 2 dark spots that I was able to see, it looked like it hadn't had a launch yet. It was completely crazy. I'm startled. What SpaceX, I mean, besides all the craziness that's obviously happening on Starbase, all these little details, they're solving them one at a time and continuously, and each and every one of those solved items brings them closer to a launch every 60 minutes, which is going to change the entire way the spaceflight industry works. And I think that's the reason why we're all here today. We're up to 3,500 people. We see the first super chats come in. If you haven't done so yet, please do like the stream. Take the second it takes to click that little heart button, and because that tells the algorithm that you enjoy what we're doing, and it'll show it to other people, and then the more the merrier. We're all happy if there's more people coming.
Yeah.
If you have a question for me, you can write, you can either do a super chat. Exactly. You can either do a super chat. We do prefer those because that's the people that actively support the channel. But you can also just write #question, and we'll filter all of those out, and I'll answer as many as I can, as always, or we will. I often can't answer all of them, so it does make sense to connect them to a super chat, because at 60,000 people, it's, even if I speed talk as much as I can, there's always a few that just stay unanswered. But I've always thought that it might be a good thing to just take those out and make an episode about all the questions that we couldn't answer, like a speed talk format or something.
Nice.
Might want to do that, because we, like, every time I feel sorry for all those that had their questions in and that didn't get them answered. We could just maybe export them and make I can speed talk. That's not a problem.
If you want it, we can definitely export them.
Yeah, that would be nice. I just had that thought. That would maybe be something that's worth it. We have our subscriber counter down in the corner as well. That tells you how many people have decided to join us. We're at 600 and almost 53,000 people, which is absolutely insane. That's like 6 medium-sized towns. I just talked about this yesterday with my wife again, with Stefanie. She's managing stuff in the background. She might be on camera later as well. I'd be very happy about that. She's doing live production. So if I start talking about Raptor engines and you see an animation of a Raptor engine appearing on screen, that is her in the background. And we talked about how crazy it's become over the years, how many people are interested in this, and it's just a joy. So thank you all so much for joining us. And we've already got a few questions in, so I'm just going to start so that there is very little people in the end that we did not answer. Okay, so this, if I want to put the question on screen, I have to push the little thingy here. There we go. There you go. I did not do that. Thank you very much. Good to have Y back after your holidays. Rob Trike, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your super chat. Yeah, we had a little summer break, and I did not announce it on the last episode. So we had so many people. Thank you so much if you're one of them. On the last episode, we had so many people in the comments saying it's good to be back. It's good to have Y back. And we were all worried about you, Felix. I was just enjoying a week off. So everything's fine. I also moved to a new house. So we're now even closer to the pads than we were before. When there's a Falcon 9 launch outside, everything, or our whole house is rattling. And that's exactly how it should be. So we're even closer. That all consumed a little bit of time, and there were a lot of things we need to organize, and building up a new studio and so on and so forth. So we just thought it would be good to take some time off, and we did that, but I forgot to mention it. So we just had no episodes for 1.5 weeks, and then the comments were so nice, though. Thank you so much. I read almost all of them, I think, and there was one person saying that he clicks the like button even before the video has started. This kind of stuff is what makes us continue. So thank you so much for that. And it is very, very much appreciated. Thank you. All right, we have GT Jack 3509. Thank you so much for your super chat. I am from Jack's FL, so Jacksonville, Florida, but today I am at Raptor Roost. So very, very nice. Shout out to you and everybody else who's around you. This is everything is tracking to launch. There is nothing on my radar. The weather looks perfect. They had no problems during the booster static fire, so the pad is working. That's a really good indicator. The last time they had a flurry of stuff that they had to fix, and then they destacked the booster, and a roller broke, and they fixed it and put it back on. Then they had an SQD arm that had a sensor that was so sensitive that it canceled the launch when the arm spun back, and so on and so forth. So they had so many problems, and this time there was nothing. So if there isn't an unforeseen problem with the engines or a valve freezing up or something like that, that can always happen. Rockets are difficult, but it looks so good today. So I'm thinking that you're in for a really, really good show down there. I'm hoping that everything is going to go good on this launch, because that means the next one will be that one launch with this first chip catch. We're all waiting for it. But SpaceX's internal rule is they want to have at least one nominal launch with the new V3 design. So with the booster and with the ship. If everything works out and they just go for their soft landings in the Gulf and in the Indian Ocean, the next one is going to be a ship catch. And I am going to travel down to Starbase for that one. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah, it's crazy. You can see a size comparison there on screen right now, which is not to size. Elliot did this because he wanted to emphasize the Starship in the middle. So it isn't as large as you can see it there, but you can see the numbers next to it. And it is by far the largest rocket that we've ever had flying. By volume, it's even more, because most rockets get smaller up top, right? Because they're staged, and so the stages get smaller and smaller. On a Starship, you can see that almost all the way to the top, there is no getting smaller. The diameter doesn't reduce at all. It stays at those 9 meters, which is on its own already insane. And so the volume of a Starship is even more impressive. It's completely crazy what SpaceX is building there. I am so pumped. I'm so looking forward to this. All right, just let me give you a small rundown of what is going to be different on this flight compared to the last one. I'm not going to go further back because that was V2, and you can watch our episodes to get all the changes between V2 and V3. There would be too many to list them all, but there are quite a few changes from the last launch, from Flight 12 to Flight 13. And the most important one by far, in my opinion, is there is real payload. On the other launches, we had, what was it, Cris? 2 kind of functioning satellites, but not entirely.
Yeah, we had the dumplings, which were just mass simulators, and then we had the ones that had the cameras on them. But they were also mass simulators with cameras, and this time they really go for the real deal. And 20 of them, and 6 with cameras. So I hope that we will just get some crazy pictures, because we can, if everything works, actually see them deploy their solar panels and everything. So not just the ship, which is in itself crazy as well, to see a real-time image of a ship in orbit, basically. But seeing a satellite deploy next to it as well, that's just really crazy. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, it's going to be epic.
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest difference is that those are real V3 satellites. And the reason why SpaceX already has them, you can see it down there. That is a clip from that documentary that I was talking about. So you can see that's a camera right there. They have thrust. These are actually lights that are supposed to illuminate the Starship. This is a laser link. This is a Hall effect thrusters. Everything is on them. These are real working Starlink V3 satellites that SpaceX has never used. And I wouldn't be surprised if the payload deployment, the entire sequence, is going to be extremely interesting, because having a mass simulator is something different than having a real satellite on it. It might have the same mass, it might have the same dimensions, but it doesn't behave like the real satellite. So, and what SpaceX wants to test with this is, does the PEZ dispenser dispense satellites and not just dummies, not just weights? And so that's going to be really interesting, possibly a place at which they will face problems. We'll have to wait and see. But that is extremely interesting. And 6 of them have cameras, so they're going to float out of the Starship and take a look at the heat shield. And I have already speculated on the last episode that I do think that that is going to be something that we're going to see more often during the first, I don't know, 100 launches or so.
Yeah.
Because the re-entry is a problem. You have to make absolutely sure that your upper stage is in the condition to reach the tower without turning into a debris field. Because if that debris field, like if it comes down a little past the Turks and Caicos, it's fine. It's not optimal, but there is an exclusion zone and it's been established and there aren't any ships or planes or anything, and that is okay. But you cannot do that you can't evacuate towns.
Mm. Okay, I think we lost Felix there for a second, so I just have to pick up there. Yes, as Felix was just saying that once we actually go orbital, once we go all the way around the planet and back towards Starbase from the other side. Oh, Felix is back.
Yeah, I
Welcome
don't
back.
know what just happened. I had a few problems with my internet connection today, so I'm very sorry. So
Okay,
yeah, where did I stop?
I just left off at the point that once you go around the planet and go back to Starbase the whole way around, that you really, really have to make sure, since there's a whole huge gap that you have to go over land, that you don't have any unscheduled disassembly there.
Yep.
That's just one thing that you have to make absolutely sure, and using the cameras to make sure the heat shield is still intact is just a great way of like adding that little extra safety margin.
Yeah, exactly. You can't, what I said, I think when I was already dropping out, is you cannot evacuate a city.
Yeah.
You can have an exclusion zone over an ocean or a desert maybe or something like that, but if there is a town or a village or anything, you cannot make people leave their houses for your launch. And you can't do that every 60 minutes either. And so it's impossible. You have to make absolutely, oh, we have tower vent. You have to, this for everybody who doesn't know yet means SpaceX is preparing the lines. The tank farm is spooling up, the lines are cooling down, and everything is being readied for the Starship to start fueling. We have 50 minutes before launch. We have a go, no-go poll for fueling operations, and then the whole show starts. And the more you see these vapor clouds build up, we're going to show you all we can here, the more you know that SpaceX is still tracking for the launch. So whoever is trolling you saying the launch was scrubbed or anything, it hasn't been, and we're tracking. Okay, so what I was explaining is that those 6 satellites with cameras on them, because a Starlink satellite normally doesn't need cameras, they all, I think, do have positioning cameras and stuff like that enables them to view a little bit of stuff around them, but that's it. And they don't have any high resolution cameras looking out the way they deployed. That is for inspections. So where, for example, the space shuttle, if you remember back to Columbia, which had the Columbia disaster was caused by a heat shield failure. A little bit of insulation foam hit the heat shield on ascent, and then it was damaged, and that led to that catastrophe. If they would have had a chance to inspect the heat shield, that would have at least given them an idea if they can safely deorbit. They didn't even know that back then, and that was a big problem. And SpaceX is circumventing that by having the payload look at the Starship as it is being deployed. So the Starship deploys the satellites, turns around, and then the satellites can see the heat shield from 6 different perspectives. And that enables them to check the tiles. They have floodlights that will illuminate the ship, and they have camera taking a look at it. And as you can see, there's, oh, this is beautiful. You see these white spots on the heat shield? There is one right there, and there was one further down, and there's one on the nose, and there's another one on the forward flap, and so on and so forth. Those are targets for the cameras to actually know what they're looking at, and then they can inspect the heat shield and at least I would love to sit in front of their screens in the control room while this is happening. I would be very interested to see how good that feed actually is, because finding a small crack in a heat tile is very difficult. Finding a missing heat tile is probably going to work because there's white like mineral wool fleece under these tiles, and that gives you good contrast, but finding a crack should be really hard to do. We'll see. That those are all things that they are figuring out right now, and that's why they've got these 6 satellites that are going to look back at the ship after deployment, and that'll verify to them in what kind of condition the heat shield is. And then after that, it goes down in the Indian Ocean again, like last time and all the times before it. Again, for anybody who doesn't know. This is not because SpaceX couldn't get the Starship into orbit. They could absolutely. The Starship has all the fuel reserves and it has engines that are working, so you could just burn them a little longer and arrive in orbit, but then you've got your deorbit problem. If anything happens while you're in orbit and it gets out of control because because communications break and you can't reach your Starship anymore, you cannot ensure that it is going to safely deorbit, and that's the problem. A 130-ton upper stage equipped with a heat shield is going to survive reentry. And it is going to turn into a massive debris field. And that massive debris field might rain down over, I don't know, what's in the path. Probably something like Austin or Houston, maybe, because it comes down in a circle down towards Starbase again. And it would be a massive disaster. And so you have to make absolutely sure that the heat shield is intact and that it can reliably perform this action. And that's what this launch is about. And if it actually does tick off all those boxes, Flight 14 is going to be even crazier. And after that, it is going to be almost unbelievable. When they start doing orbital fueling operations, when they start testing HLS prototypes, there are so many things still to come. We're in the infancy. A good example for that is, and I've been thinking about that more than once, that I should at some point put that into an episode, is if you've been a Starship fan for a while now, you remember the high altitude flight tests of SN, I think 7 to 11 or something like that. Remember how awesome that felt when you could see that upper stage fly up and then do its belly flop and come back down, and we were all absolutely mind blown. That's nothing against what's happening here. That's literally nothing. They just went 10, 12 kilometers up and then they came back down and they almost stuck the landing, and once they made it. That's all that happened. But our minds were absolutely blown back then. If that would happen today, we'd be like, yeah, but why is there no booster? You know, it's just a ship. We'd all be bored. And that's what's in the future. At some point, these launches are going to turn into, yeah, we've seen that before, but then they're going to start doing fueling operations in orbit. They're going to start building a moon base. I mean, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman has already teased that they're going to have a 24/7 live camera filming how they are building that base on the moon.
Absolutely amazing. And the other thing is, we know by now that it's going to work. We got the communication technology. We will actually have like a really near real-time stream from the moon in 4K 24/7. Just
We have all the puzzle pieces. That's another interesting thing. I talked about that with my wife like 2 hours ago or so. One of the reasons why many people say that Starship is not going to work is because it hasn't been done yet, which often is an indicator. That's how our brain works. If nobody's ever done it, it might not be doable. But the problem with this conclusion is that nowadays science goes so quick that there are quite a few absolutely incredible things that we've researched, but we haven't built them yet. So our technology enables us to do so many things that we can't keep up with the building speed, basically. We know we could do so much more, but it takes a concrete truck can't be accelerated by science. It takes a while. If you want to build a flame trench, if you want to build the rocket, if you want to later build the base on the moon, it just takes time. It isn't done in 2 weeks, no matter how fast your research is. So we're basically lacking behind. Where 100 or 200 years ago, everything was built that's possible at the time because there wasn't that much. Nowadays, that's not the case anymore. We have so many things basically just sitting there waiting for us to build them. Already researched, already done, all the puzzle pieces are there. You just have to see how they fit together. But this stuff, what you see there in this animation, that moon base that Elliot made for us, is possible. We just need to start building it. And this Starship is the truck. It'll move the heavy equipment. And that's what those launches every 60 minutes are going to be for. At first, it is going to release Starlink satellites into orbit, but that is going to refinance all the other projects in the same way that Falcon 9 right now is financing Starship. The only reason why SpaceX can do this is because of Falcon 9. And so Starship is going to be the stepping stone for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And if SpaceX doesn't stop, and if there's always a market, so if there is a revenue from this, and that's the most difficult part, but SpaceX is even solving that. I still remember when when Falcon 9 started being reusable, and people said, but what are they going to send up? what are they going to do with all those launches? Well, great. Now they can launch twice a week. But what are they even going to launch with this? There aren't enough payloads. Well, they made their own payload. And that's the same thing that's happening here with Starship. There are a few customers already lined up to use Starships for their own payloads, but it's 99.9% of it is SpaceX's own projects.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
and again, using it for Starlink is such a great opportunity to refine this ship into the perfectly working machine, just like they did on Falcon, in such a short amount of time.
And
Yeah,
with
and
so much more capability.
absolutely, absolutely, and this is why I still believe that we are still on track for the entire moon base initiative. Because yes, they will have to have HLS ready for the docking simulation next year. They will have to have it ready in 28 for the moon landing. But once they got the Starship working, I have hope.
I have lots of faith in SpaceX actually being able to do this in the end.
Yeah, sure,
But
but
I
the
don't
years.
know about 27.
Yeah,
And this isn't meant negatively either, because my point of view to this is a little different. To me, it doesn't matter much if it's done in 27 or 28 or 29. What counts for me is the gain of ability.
yeah,
This tool, Starship is a tool, and it massively raises our capabilities in spaceflight. And so it doesn't really matter if it's done in 27 or 29. As long as it is done at some point, it is going to be so worth it. So what I expect for next year for those HLS tests, and NASA has also kind of already announced it, is that there's not going to be an HLS like next year. It's going to be a modified upper stage
yeah.
with a docking adapter so that you can test a little bit.
Yeah, but which by the book is what is demanded of this test. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. They'll be able, well, it would be great if they had a full HLS, they could test even more, but it'll be enough.
yeah,
But then the clock is ticking towards the next year where they're supposed to have an entire HLS. HLS is a massive project. It's not just a small lander. It is huge.
yeah.
And if you want to actually use the capabilities, you will have to have useful stuff inside. It doesn't,
Yeah.
it's, there's Elliot's beautiful animations again. There you can see an Orion capsule docking with a finished HLS. That is not what I'm expecting next year.
Yeah.
It would be my
So-
dream, trust me, but that's not going to happen ever. That is still, at least in my opinion, at least 2, maybe 3 years out until we can see something like this.
But still,
Maybe
on the
even
other hand,
more.
you're just saying that's like 3 years out. Yeah, show me
It's
this
crazy.
10 years ago, and I would have told you that's just science fiction, and I'm so sad that I won't live to see that.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The ability that Starship is going to give us is worth the wait, in my opinion. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's going to be this year or next year or in 2030, as long as they can do it. If they can't do it, it was a fun journey and then it ended. But if they can get it to function the way they are envisioning it to function in the end, it will be so revolutionary. And even, I mean, I'm looking at all the other countries and all the other launch providers. I mean, there are quite a few that are doing very interesting things like Rocket Lab with their Neutron and Terran R, and where though Terran R is so sad, the initial concept was so nice, and now it's so much less. But then it also shows you how hard it is. If they can manage to build Terran R in the form they have it right now, it's still going to be great. And Stoke Space and so on and so forth. There are so many, but there is none quite like Starship. Starship would be a quantum leap in capabilities. It's just absolutely incredible. Imagine that you can send 100 tons of payload every 60 minutes.
Mhm.
It's still absolutely incredible to me, and I've been interested in rockets for the past 30 years. And nothing like this has ever been there. It is not just the largest rocket ever built. It is so much more than that, due to its added capabilities of being reusable, fully reusable, and rapidly reusable, which is that last little puzzle piece that you need to build anything meaningful. All those things, all those nice things we know from science fiction, stations in orbit, bases on the moon, and maybe at some point even an orbital elevator. Any of these large projects require a lot of payload in space.
Yeah.
There is no way around it. And then resource harvesting on the moon and on asteroids and so on and so forth. It's like Astroforge, for example. That is amazing, but it is tiny.
Mhm.
If we want to have meaningful amounts of resources, you will have to have heavy industry in space.
Yeah.
huge complexes floating out there doing all this stuff with huge solar panel arrays to produce the energy. And all of that is a massive payload, lots and lots of tons of payload. And that's what Starship might be able to give us.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. And that is why we're here. And that's why we're broadcasting this stuff. And this is Flight 13 for everybody who has just joined us. We are waiting for SpaceX to launch Starship Flight 13 with ship 40 on top, booster 20 on the bottom. There are quite a few changes. One, we just talked about the payloads. So there are going to be 20 real V3 Starlink satellites on board, fully operational. They're all going to connect to each other after deployment. And then 20 minutes later, they're going to re-enter the atmosphere because they're following that same trajectory, that same ballistic trajectory. But for the test, it's enough. So it's going to be the first time in the history of SpaceX where a V3 Starlink network is being built. Several of these satellites communicating with each other. Then we have changes in the upper stage engine relight or actually engine ignition, because during hot staging that had too much there was too much tolerance in how the engines lit and too little tolerance in the software to compensate. So it led to the booster flipping 90 degrees off the position it was supposed to flip, and it could never correct that. And the booster also had engine outs, I think 5?
Yeah,
was it 5?
So. Yeah, I think so. Sounds
right.
So
there are quite a few things that still need to be improved, and they've implemented more fixes, and we're now seeing them test those fixes. And if this works out, Flight 14 is going to see a ship catch, and it's going to see me being down there, and I'm so looking forward to that. All right, if you have a question, what is it, Cris?
No, the other thing that really surprised me was that they were able to shave off like another 10% of the time of refueling that monster, or fueling, not refueling. Yeah. That's mind-blowing as well. It's just a minor detail, but now we're at like just over half an hour to fill that entire incredibly huge thing.
Yeah, just in comparison for everybody, SLS is 10 hours before ignition they start fueling. Blue Origin's New Glenn is 4 hours before the launch that they start fueling, and so on and so forth. So there is no rocket in the entire rocket industry that fuels in 35 minutes, despite being the largest rocket ever. It's crazy. And I think you just mentioned that they're faster on this launch. I think the reason for that is that the pad was brand new on Flight 12. And so I think they had limits set. Yeah. And now they're lowering these limits, getting to the actual time that pad is capable of. I think that's the entire reason. We're going to see them speed that up, maybe even more on future launches, because operations and timetables, everything's being optimized, everything is being better understood, and so it leads to them getting it done even faster. 37 minutes. It's crazy.
No, because they're actually done a bit before it, so it's like under 35.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like how much was it? 11 F-150s? No, that was something different. No, that was something that was the propellant consumption during launch. How much is it? I had it calculated on the last episode. How much was it? I don't remember. It was an absurd amount of fuel at the same time. I don't remember. There are so many numbers in these episodes. Yes. It's nuts. It's absolutely incredible how fast SpaceX gets all these things done. All right. If you have a question and if you want to support us actively, send us a super chat and put your question into that super chat. If you do not have the money for that, I'll try to answer your questions as well. Just send them in with #question and I'll answer them as fast as I can. If you've just joined us, please do click the like button. It helps us a lot. It makes the algorithm show the stream to other people, and so there's more people, and the more the merrier. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel. You can our subscriber timer isn't there yet. My goal for today would be 655,000 subscribers. I know that's a crazy number, but that would bring us back to like I started the channel 7 years ago, and so almost every year we gained 100,000 subscribers, which is absolutely incredible. And my goal is to at some point have that 1 million subscribers sitting on the channel, which would be absolutely nuts. And after that, I'm just probably going to quit. So maybe you shouldn't subscribe. But yeah, my goal is to have 1 million subscribers after 10 years. And and I don't know how many videos so far we're at over 1,000 videos released over 7 years. It's completely crazy. Like the entire team. It's so much fun to work with you guys, by the way. I know I say that on every team meeting, but you guys are absolutely amazing. You rock. All right, so if you want to send me a question, combine it with a super chat, and you're going to make us smile, send them in, and I'm going to answer as many as I can. Okay, so the next one would be, can we bring that on screen real quick? From our Bumper Gaming. Thank you so much for your super chat. Yay, I get a Starship launch for my birthday. Happy birthday. Everybody in the chat, give it up for our Bumper Gaming. It's his birthday today, or her. Her or his birthday, I can't tell. How old are you turning? If you're still here, write it in the chat and everybody say happy birthday. This is really, really cool. I have never had a rocket launch on my birthday yet. I'm always waiting for it, but it never works out. So happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for showing up. Enjoy the ride, hopefully with lots of your friends next to you or something like that. And wow, we're an hour away from the fueling go, no go decision. This is going so fast. And even though we came online 2.5 hours before. How is time going so fast? Okay. The Blade Father, thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you for your channel, huge SpaceX and Tesla investor, same here. And I always love your videos, your video updates. Let's go. Thank you for investing into the future. Keep it, don't sell it, just keep it for the next 10 years and you will not regret it. And this is absolutely amazing. Starship, and we're at 653. Thank you guys. 2,000 more. 2,000. We have 7,000 people watching. If there's 2,000 people who haven't subscribed yet, just click the thing. I'll be smiling and I won't mention it again for this stream. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible what SpaceX is doing, and now they're all fusing these companies as well. I expect Tesla to be fusing with SpaceX AI, what it's called at this point, as well at some point. And I've been saying it for some time. If you look at all the companies that Musk has created over time, you have Tesla, you have SpaceX, you have the Boring Company, you have Neuralink, you have the Solar City for the solar cells, and so on and so forth. There are a few companies that he's built, and all of those are needed. All the tech these companies make, that's the AI-1 satellite, by the way, modular build and so on and so forth. Super interesting stuff. I might be able to explain that as well. Otherwise, if I don't have the time, watch the last episode. All of this stuff is in the last episode. It's a really good one. So all these technologies that Musk's companies are working on, they can all be combined and they are all needed if we actually want to settle another world. You will need an AI-powered robot because we can't do all the tasks. You will need shit tons, batteries. You will need the same incredible amount of solar cells. You will need that rocket desperately. There is no way around that. And so on and so forth. You need the tunnel boring machine to get underground, because the best way to protect yourselves from radiation from that evil cosmos around you, because the moon, the Mars, they don't have that magnetic field or a nice atmosphere. So you have to protect yourself. The by far easiest way is to dig down, and so on and so forth. And then you can even take a look at what are the dimensions of the Boring Company Boring. They fit into a Starship payload. And I think that's not an accident, and so on and so forth. So there are some really, really interesting things still to come if all this works out. And being invested in that, I think, is not a bad idea. But this is not financial advice. I think you have to say that or something like that. Okay, so then we have the Flying Solo. Thank you so much for your super chat. I've always been so confused by the boost back. If the booster is moving at 6 kilometers per second at separation, how does one little burn flip that? Negate all the speed and move it. No, that's not how that works. Cris, do you want to explain that? You know that as good as I do.
Well, the thing is,
maybe we can show some animations while you're explaining.
Yeah, that would be great. The thing is that first of all, you have to flip over to start getting rid of the speed, to get into the other direction. So first you have to flip, position it, and then you have to burn again. That's why it has to relight so many engines, because it literally has to get rid of all the speed that is built in the one direction to get over into the other direction.
Yep. And it's also, the flip isn't just exclusively, SpaceX is really, really good at saving power, at saving fuel, at making things very efficient. That's why they do the hot staging the way they do. On MECO, normally is called main engine cutoff, meaning all engines stop for staging, right? So the booster stage turns all its engines off. the upper stage separates mechanically or pyrotechnically and then lights up its engines and flies away. That's how it's normally done. On a Starship, MECO stands for most engines cut off. That's because 6, I think, of the engines on the booster never, or 11 or 10?
Nothing.
A few. I don't know the exact. I think it's 6, but I'm not 100% sure. If somebody in the chat will probably correct me. So the booster keeps a few of the engines running, and the Starship only creates more thrust than that. That is how it separates, and that means it never stops pushing. It never fully stops pushing. The Starship just blasts its engines against the booster. And there's the next trick. The Starship starts up its own engines in a very specific way. You can see the upper, that's the dome, that the forward dome that those engines are firing against. And the ignition pattern of the upper stage is slightly staged. And that creates an offset thrust on the booster because those engines are aiming at the booster, and that initiates the flip. So the flip isn't even done by the booster's engines, or not entirely. It is done a little bit because the booster does the same thing. When it relights its engines, it's a slightly asymmetric pattern, which makes the booster flip even more. And the energy, the goal of that reentry is to shed as much energy as you can, because for everything you can't shed without engines, you will need to use fuel. And if you need to use fuel to slow down your booster, you reduce your payload that goes up with the Starship, because a certain part of the fuel needs to be saved for the landing, right? And you want to keep that as low as possible. And the way SpaceX does that with the version 3, that's why it only has 3 grid fins at this point. Version 2 had 4 grid fins, because the booster, it did a kind of glide through the atmosphere, but not very much. The version 3 booster, as you can see right there in the animation right now, is basically soaring through the atmosphere at a very steep angle, so that it has as much cross-section on the atmosphere as possible to shed as much energy as possible. So it's kind of soaring back. I know it's hard to make a cigar soar, but it is possible. And SpaceX does it as much as they can. So they get rid of a lot of energy by just doing that. And what's ever left in the end is being shed with, you can see the asymmetric pattern in which the engines work. Oh, Elliot is such a talented guy. I'm so happy to have him on the team. Makes it so much. See, there's the shutdown. And then comes the ramp back of the engines ramping up again, and that creates the flip, or mostly. And the rest of the energy that they can't shed with anything else is being shed by the landing burn in the end. The same way that a Falcon 9 does. The difference is Falcon 9 then flips out its legs and lands on a boat or on a pad, and the super heavy booster just gets caught by the chopsticks. But that's almost the same thing as landing with legs. It's just without legs. But the software on the booster does exactly the same thing during landing. And that's it. That's how they do it. I hope that answered your question. It was a good question. Thank you. All right, and we have way more questions now, so I have to speed it up a little bit. The Blade Father, thank you so much for your super chat. I heard you say they are bringing up V3 Starlink sets, yes, and that they are going to burn up 20 minutes later, yes. What's up with that? Why destroy all the hardware? Okay, so if you want to bring something into orbit, a payload, the upper stage needs to get into orbit, or you need to have very powerful thrusters on your payload to bump up your orbit even further. But Starlink satellites don't have that. They have Hall effect thrusters, which are meant to produce thrust over time and not in a short amount of time. And so they would never be able to raise the orbit even further, I think. The reason why they deorbit immediately is because they follow exactly the same trajectory as the Starship. And the Starship's trajectory is made to do that. It's supposed to deorbit, 38 minutes after launch, the Starship re-enters the atmosphere. And that's it. And so since they are deployed by that Starship, those payload satellites follow exactly that same trajectory. That's the reason.
Yeah, and just to add, why destroy the hardware? Because they're using ones that would potentially be fully functional, is to really test them. That's the other thing. They have the first time the possibility to test them in orbit or in space. And so, yeah, they're trying to actually build up a network. So they have a lot of knowledge to gain from this. They have a lot of data points that they can acquire there. And that's the reason why they actually chose to use the real thing here.
Yeah,
also,
because they...
yeah, also, to see if the deployment mechanism actually works with the real thing. But you already said that before. Yeah.
Yeah, they behave differently than the dummies. A dummy satellite basically really is, it has the same dimensions and the same weight, but it doesn't behave the same way. A satellite is made up of all sorts of separate components, and they flex and they bend and they might react differently to changing temperatures. And all this kind of stuff needs to be tested. You can simulate all this, but there's always something a simulation is only as good as the parameters that you put in. And if you don't know the parameters, you can't simulate it. And so there is, yeah.
I think this is actually something which we've seen with Flight 12. That's the same thing. They have done tons of simulations and they still couldn't anticipate anything, everything.
Exactly.
They just have to try it out. That's another reason why I'm so hyped for a good flight today, because they had the chance now. They could learn from 12, and 12
and they
was
already
the first flight.
We can already see that they massively did. Like I said, the static fire, they just lifted the booster on top, booster 20, as you can see it there on the pad. They just lifted it on and did their static fire, and that's it. On Flight 12, that was a huge hassle. They had to stack it onto that pad 4 times to get their static fire done. Yeah. They had one where it totally didn't work and half the engines were damaged after a quick shutdown, and they had to replace all of those and actually cannibalize booster 20's engines that were already on site for booster 20, but they had so many damage from the mishap on the static fire that they had to take them from booster 20, and so on and so forth. They had a huge amount of problems. On this flight, zip, nothing. The one problem they had from the ship static fire, but I do really just think that was an engine problem. So they repurposed it to a 1-engine static fire, did that, everything fine, checked their problem that they had in the mega bay, rolled it back, and it worked. So minimal problems. And that's exactly why you test, to find all the things that you couldn't simulate because you couldn't anticipate it. And that's the same with those satellites. A dummy simulates a few things. It simulates the weight, it simulates the dimensions, but it can't simulate everything because it isn't a satellite. It isn't the real thing. And so that's like, I'm going to pay close attention to that payload deployment. That's going to be really, really interesting. All right, so that's the reason why that was about the Starlinks, exactly. So that's the reason why they deorbit, is just simply because they're on that same trajectory. And they cannot raise their orbit alone. So they could only keep them in orbit if the Starship would reach orbit, and they can't do that yet because it would be too risky. That's the simple reason. Okay, then we have Indigo, Justini. Thank you so much for your super chat. It is great to have you here. I wish you all the best with what you're doing right now. Let's hope Flight 13 isn't a bad omen. No, it isn't. What are you even saying? Felix, like always, have a great launch day. Miss you guys enormously. Yeah, we miss you too. You got to come visit at some point. He is a personal friend of ours. He started becoming a fan of What About It, I think when he was like 6 years old. No, I don't know. He was a little older, but it was in the dark ages of the channel. Him and Jonathan as well, who does all the stuff in the background right now, they joined our team very, very early on, and so they basically became family. That guy as well. He was so tiny. When Jonathan joined us, he was what? How old were you, Jonathan? Just come back real quick. How old were you? You're muted.
You're muted.
Hey, look, I thought I'm smart and mute myself in our conferencing tool. So if I talk to the other people in the back end, I don't know Felix and Cris in the front end talking to the stream. But then I, of course, forget to unmute myself. Yeah, but I said
no
I'm like, I think I was 15, 14, 15.
And what do you study
Something
now?
around that. I'm studying mechanical engineering right now.
Mm-hmm. And you're building rockets in your free time?
Oh yeah, I build rockets in free time.
He builds rockets in his free time. Yep, exactly. So there you go. Yeah, that's one of the coolest thing of being able to do this channel, is how many people you influence to become interested in spaceflight. So if you got interested in spaceflight through What About It, that's basically the biggest compliment you can give anybody on the team. It's a mind blower for me every time I get an email from somebody or a comment under an episode saying that they're now studying aerospace engineering because 5 years ago they started watching What About It. It is absolutely incredible. So thank you everybody for watching. We're approaching 10,000 people, by the way, right now. If you've just joined us, we are waiting for SpaceX to do the crazy thing for the 13th time. This is Flight 13 with Ship 40 on top and Booster 20 on the bottom, the second flight of the version 3 Starship design, which is radically different than the V2 design, and that was radically different than the V1 design. So they're iterating on their process really, really fast. All the preparations for Flight 13 have already looked way better than when they did it for Flight 12. So we're on track for something amazing today. Stay tuned. There are a lot of things there. You could just see the satellite camera from 2 satellites that had cameras on the last flight. On this one, it's going to be 20 Starlink satellites with 6 of them having cameras. So there are a lot of things to look forward to on this launch. And if it does check all the boxes, Flight 14 is going to be even crazier. So it's absolutely worth watching. Thank you, Indigo, for your super chat. Okay, we have... Oh, and if you have a question, hashtag question in the chat. If you want to be bumped up in the list, which is absolutely worth it because we're building up like crazy already, connected to a super chat. The people that actively support us are bumped up in the list because they actively support us, and it is very helpful for us, trust me. So if you decide to do that, your chances of actually getting an answer are way higher. And I've just thought about maybe saving this question list in the end, all the questions that I couldn't answer, and turning it into a quick episode. That would be really cool. I might actually do that.
We could even do it as a conversation. Basically.
Exactly. We could just be a
like
free
this.
format. Exactly. Maybe even as a live stream. But then...
Yeah, then we get more questions.
Exactly. That's what I thought. Okay. So then we have Rob Tanzola 9069. Thank you so much for your super chat. When do you think we will see crew on a ship launch? That's down the line.
Yeah.
We will see it at some point. But for that, the entire Starship rocket needs to be absolutely safe. It needs to be tested hundreds of times. Every subsystem needs to be proven and double proven and triple proven and redundant. Humans or anything alive, for that matter, in my opinion, is the most precious payload you can have, and you want to make very sure that nothing happens. If a satellite gets destroyed, you have an insurance policy. If a person gets destroyed, you have a gravestone. And that's the problem. And so you have to make absolutely sure that everything works 100%. And SpaceX is in a pretty comfortable spot running the best by far capsule to get people to the ISS there is right now. Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon are an extremely reliable and very, very good option to get people into orbit. So I wouldn't even be surprised when HLS comes. Absolutely, you're going to send the HLS Starship into space, and then Crew is going to transfer into it, either in lunar orbit, but NASA is already backpedaling because all the other providers were too expensive and late, and so they're rethinking their whole SLS launch process. You see the animation down there with the Orion capsule docking with HLS for a crew transfer. So even before Starship actually launches people from a pad, it'll already be crewed in space, because then you're taking out that dangerous launch phase. You just bring them up with a Crew Dragon or with an Orion capsule, make them board the HLS, and then travel somewhere. We're going to see that earlier. But at some point, eventually, you're going to have a crew access arm on that pad. Yes, but that's down the line. Yeah. And it is absolutely impossible to say when. My prediction right now would be at least 5 years.
Sounds good.
Possibly more. It is Starship isn't just a normal rocket.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cris.
Yeah, it was just that I was thinking like the earliest time when you want to start doing that is maybe even Mars, because then you have a lot of people that you want to have up there at the same time. As long as you're still going to the moon with just a few people, you can always just use a Dragon to bring them up.
Yep. And I'm also very sure that it's not going to be NASA astronauts on those first launches with Crew. It's going to be SpaceX astronauts. Yeah. Because NASA has very, very high criteria for getting something certified. SpaceX is circumventing that by doing their own missions. Yeah. Like Polaris Dawn, for example, with Crew Dragon and Fram2. Those were excellent examples for SpaceX just skipping it. No NASA astronauts. SpaceX is right now building up an astronaut academy led by, I think, Jared Isaacman even. So he's leading the project. He's not going to lead that school, but he's leading the project right now, as far as I know. And that the incredible thing about that project is that it's not built to have 10 astronauts trained. It's built to have 1,000 astronauts trained. And there you can see where this direction is going. SpaceX wants to do so much more than anybody else. But at some point, you're going to have a crew access arm on that thing, and then you're going to see me bite my nails before that launch.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, well, that's how it's going to go. At some point, we'll have to go through it. But yeah, I think that's at least 5 years out. So we still have some time for that. Jared Isaacman wants to fly, and a few others as well. Already announced first Starship crew flights and so on and so forth. But it's going to take some time. Okay, we have Prime Prover. Thank you so much for your super chat. Graduated with my PhD today. Woo!
Congratulations.
Very nice. Congratulations. Great to have this as evening entertainment after a long, hot day. Let's hope we have success tonight. Thank you so much for sharing that. Everybody in the chat, where we gave a happy birthday earlier, now we can give a congratulations to a fresh PhD holder here. That is absolutely amazing. And I wish you all the best for what comes next. Very nice. Yep. And fingers crossed for Starship. I have a good feeling, though. I don't think that there's going to be major problems today. Maybe that typical valve that doesn't work, but anything else, I don't think there's going to be much trouble today. Everything looks good. Have we checked SpaceX if they have announced anything? Nothing. Nope. Falcon 9 has launched from Vandenberg.
Yeah.
Yep. Very nice as well. So for those who do not know, of course, SpaceX never stands still, not even for a Starship flight. So they have just launched a Falcon 9 out of Vandenberg without trouble, as always. It's just absolutely incredible. All right, we have Gregory Albright, T3P. Thank you so much for your generous donation. This will be put to direct use. Major international influencer. What does that mean?
I think that goes out to you.
Are you kidding me? No, I'm just that rocket nerd who started making videos. Please don't push me into anything. I think it's also better for the channel. When your channel is growing, you get all these thoughts in your head that you might want to get into the next step of becoming corporate or something. Like everybody on our team will tell you the same thing. Felix is that goofball. I am doing team meetings. When we are like Jonathan is already. He's off screen, but I can see him. He's like going like this. Yeah, I'm never going to see exactly. I'm never going to change, and I don't want to be a major international influencer. Thank you very much. I just want to enjoy this launch with you guys, and we have 653 subscribers. Oh no, now it's more. Okay, yeah, that's me goofballing in the backyard for a sponsor. That was actually a really cool sponsoring. I'm not going to mention the name now because I don't want to be that guy, but that was actually a pretty cool product. Yeah, and that's me with
that's
Jordan
how to shop photographers.
Yeah. In the HEB in Brownsville, Texas. He said, what did he say? I don't want to be pushed around by you all day. And then I said, you wait up, and I put him into the. So yeah, that is for everybody who doesn't know that side of Felix. That is me when the camera is turned off. I've always been like there. I'm explaining something to Helena. What is that part? I don't even know what that is. Where was that? Yeah, well, that's the benefit that my kids have. That's an igniter plate. That's a injector plate for what? Injector plate for something early NASA program, I think. Yeah, I constantly explain stuff to my kids all the time. Sometimes they're like, "Oh, Daddy, again." But yeah, that's the reason why I started the channel, because I've always been this guy before as well. I was always at parties when there were like 50, 60 people in one room. I would be the one guy surrounded by 10 or 20 of those people talking about all things space. So much so at some point that party hosts got mad at me because people stopped dancing and doing their thing and just listened to that guy talking about space. So yeah, no, I'm still that dude, and I'm never going to change that. It makes it much more fun as well. Thank you so much for the super chat though, and for the compliment. We have T Bailey 1978.
Oh.
What is it?
It's so cool. Felix, I teach middle school science and I show you videos in class. There you go. Bada boom.
Wow. Yeah, thanks. That's the kind of stuff I was talking about earlier. That is the biggest compliment you can give to me and to the entire team. When somebody says they started studying this, or they use this in school, or I've even had university professors from university saying that for this in this lecture they used a video from us. it's thank you. I hope your middle school students enjoy it very much, and we are very, very honored. Thank you so much. That is very much appreciated. That is exactly why we're doing this, so that people can learn. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have blue. It's so crazy. It's been 7 years, and every time this happens, I can't believe it. We have Blue Wizard XD. Thank you so much for your super chat. Love the channel. Short and precise. Thank you so much. Keep watching, keep liking. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe. I know it's kind of like a broken record, but that's what keeps the channel going. If you stop liking, if you stop watching, if you stop subscribing, we can have as much urge to produce these videos as we want to. If there's no funding, there's no video. So thank you so much for doing this. Thank you. Okay, we have Michael Lewis 430. Thank you so much for your super chat. You're one of the best. Keep it up. I'm not alone. So that's the one thing I always mention, like Cris, and we have Jonathan, and we have Elliot, and we have Stefanie, and we have Heather, and we have Jordan and Amy, we have Richard, we have John, there are so many people in the background being busy with all this. I'm just the guy in front of the camera. I do my part, but it's not just me. So it's kudos to the team. Very, very nice. I'm their biggest fan, by the way. I really am. Chris Gage, Texas. Wonderful state. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much for being here with us today. There you go. We have Helge Comfort. That sounds very German. Thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you for this great stream. And it's also really cool that it says $euros in my backend. I found a bug. In my backend, it says $euros.
Yep.
That goes to Jonathan.
We
He's
also
going to
have
put it on his
pounds.
little tracker.
Yeah.
Dollar pounds and dollar
And
euros.
dollars.
Dollars. All right. We have D London 1144. Thank you so much, guys, for your super chats. This helps us so much. You can barely imagine. Hi, Felix. Blessings from Scotland. I've been with you for nearly every launch. You don't get to retire at 1 million. Sorry. No, I'm in this for life. You know what? That's good. I'm not planning on quitting. This is the coolest thing ever, by far, that I've ever done in my life, and it has not become boring, and I don't expect it to become boring. It's like every time somebody says, "But what are your plans for after this?" I'm like, I don't know, die.
Mars? Saturn?
There isn't a plan for after this, and that should show you that was just a joke. Retiring after 1 million. If you guys keep watching this and SpaceX keeps building rockets, or anybody else, because it isn't just SpaceX that we talk about, I'll keep doing this. It is absolutely amazing to bring you these videos twice a week. So thank you so much. We have Moises Loco, 1995. I am sorry for butchering the name. Thank you so much for the super chat. How realistic is it that nuclear-powered engines will exist? How would they change the industry? They do. They are actively working on a ship, actually, at NASA that is meaningfully large and is supposed to work as a pendulum between Mars and Earth, I think. Isn't that going to be the transfer vehicle?
Yep.
I haven't researched into it yet, so I don't want to say too much. If you know more about it, Cris, please.
There is not really that much out of it, or to know about it. For the first row, or the first time they just want to go to Mars with it. It's a nuclear-powered ship, and they are planning to build it, and they're planning to build it really, really soon. But so far, we only have these 2 renders, which you've definitely seen in our episodes. And there was like one photo of a model that they had in Washington for the State Fair.
Yep, they're working on it. And it's basically electric propulsion. It's just super powered because of a nuclear reactor behind it. If you want to have electric propulsion, you need to have a source. And that, or actually, is it? Am I saying stupid stuff?
The thing is, I'm not really 100% certain, because
I haven't researched into it.
Yeah,
yet.
they just started giving out what they want to build, but I think that it's electrically powered, and
it's at least very similar.
energy.
Exactly. And so what makes it so powerful is that you use that nuclear reaction, which lasts you so much longer than anything else and gives you stable power over time as well. It's very predictable. And that is what makes this nuclear engine so desirable for spaceflight, not for going up there. That is chemical propulsion exclusively right now, because there isn't any propulsion that is powerful enough to lift a fully fueled rocket. It is A Starship, when it's sitting on the pad, is what, 8,570 tons or something like that? So it's extremely heavy. Or is it? No, it's not. Wait,
it
it's
has to be less because
1,600 plus 2,500, 5,400 tons. It's very, very heavy. And for that, to lift that off the ground, you need a lot of thrust, and there is only chemical propulsion right now that does that. I wish it was different, because it is it feels archaic a little bit, because it's technically the same thing we do on 4th of July. It's more complex, but that's basically it. So it would be nice if we had something else, but we just don't right now. So that is going to stay the way it is. There is no magical box that you can open it up to take some great invention out of it and do it differently. It'll need to be researched, and right now there isn't anything. But for in-space propulsion, nuclear is extremely nice. And so I'm a huge fan of it, and I really, really hope that after that NASA project, that first of all, it's going to work. Demonstrate to the industry. That's what they want to do with these technology demonstrators from NASA, are often just there to show the industry, look, it's doable.
It's possible.
So please start doing it. And so that's what that thing is supposed to do. And so I hope it's going to work perfectly, because it is needed. If we want to travel to other places in the solar system, chemical propulsion is pretty bad, because you end up having 15 launches to the moon, the refueling process. If you could do that differently, it would make it way easier. And that's where nuclear propulsion comes in. So good, a big fan of nuclear propulsion, even if the word nuclear is in it. Yeah, that's another topic. It's a very political topic that goes into both directions. I am not in either direction. I'm just happy if we get if our abilities go up, especially in spaceflight, because I do think we could already do so much more in space if we hadn't stopped after Apollo. So I'm the biggest fan of what's happening right now. I was almost depressed after the shuttle was grounded, and that was it. I was almost depressed. I was like, is this supposed to be it? Like non-reusable broomsticks bringing up new TV satellites? Is that all that space is? No. Look at that. It isn't. We're in the middle of it right now. So Christopher Schmidt 8898, thank you so much for your super chat. It is hugely appreciated. Been with you since Starhopper. Love what y'all do. Well, that's since the beginning. My question is, what do y'all think of Jared's rework of the Artemis mission? I'm a big fan. Even though I was there for Artemis 1 and Artemis 2. And I have to say, just from the visual aspect of SLS is absolutely amazing. It is a rocket that looks like it's straight from Star Wars. It's double the noise of anything else that you can see fly. It's an incredible rocket. But you can basically see the dollar bills spilling out the bottom. Thank you.
Coffee.
Thank you, Helena. That is my daughter and Alex. And they're waving. Yeah, it's the family part behind it. And they brought me the right cup as well. Failure is not an option, it's mirrored. So you can basically see the dollar bills coming out of SLS, and that's my problem. It is way too expensive. It is outdated after what SpaceX and others have done. China has just reused a rocket as well, or at least caught it. Haven't reused it yet, but still, you can see it broader and broader in the industry that non-reusable rockets are a dead end. So you can't build such a massive new future project on a dead end. You can't. It would be the bad decision. And so I'm very, very happy, even though that means that all those people that worked on SLS and so on and so forth, everything needs to change. But sometimes you just have to go through it. Others have taken over. They're doing a better job. So please use those. I would actually go so far to say that Orion should go as well. As long, and that is the important part, as long as you have an alternative. Yeah. So for now, I'm happy with Orion, I'm happy with SLS, I'm happy with everything they're doing there, and we'll need at least another 1 to 2 SLS launches at absolute minimum, because otherwise the project would stop. I don't want that either. But midterm, there is SLS right there. It's a beautiful rocket. No question about it, especially the Artemis 1 night launch. I know photographers don't like night launches, but as somebody who just stands there, SLS is an amazing rocket to see launch. If you ever have the opportunity, come here, even if it's non-reusable, it doesn't matter. It's a fantastic rocket to see fly, especially if you haven't seen a Starship, a space shuttle before, which I didn't. I was too young. I didn't have the money to go to the United States and watch a space shuttle launch, so I never saw one. And SLS is basically space shuttle on steroids. It's got one more engine. The boosters have one more segment on top. It's even louder, even more powerful. It is amazing to see. But it isn't the right way to build something permanent, just because of its cost, just because it can't be reused. It is a dead end. And so I'm not a fan of dead ends. I want this to continue. I want us to progress. I want us to someday. I want to be standing on the moon and produce a video. And you can't do that with SLS. Simple thing. So I'm a huge fan, and I'm very, very. As soon as Jared Isaacman started doing that more aggressively as well, I was like, finally, somebody is having common sense, because that's what it is. If you want to do the stuff that Artemis is promising, you can't do it with a non-reusable rocket. It's just not possible. So there you go. Huge fan of the rocket and huge fan of it going, as strange as it might sound. Okay, we have Akir 1. Do you actually understand Swiss German too? Yes, a little bit. Does SpaceX collaborate with international companies, or is it a purely American? Grüezi miteinander. So yes, I do understand a little bit of Swiss German, not much. When they really start blasting it out, I'm lost as well. But if they're slow, I'll understand. And does SpaceX collaborate with international companies, or is it a purely American venture? No. But SpaceX's philosophy is to have as many things as possible built internally. And that is not because they don't want to work together with anybody. It's because it makes integration way easier. If you have a very complex machine, it is so good if all the parts come from your people, because they can communicate with the other engineer who's supposed to build this part, and then they can talk early on. A big problem for NASA is actually that they have 3, 4, 5 large companies building SLS, but none of them talks to each other. So NASA tells one company, build us this filter. And they tell another company, build us this hull. And then they tell both companies, you need to attach that filter to the hull. And they come up with a solution to attach the filter they built for the rocket to the hull. That's not how it should be. You should build the hull with that filter in mind. And exactly that is made way easier if you have everything built internally. That's why they do that. But they do have all sorts of collaborations with other companies. Absolutely. Yep. Of course. Right now they're the largest company in the world. So yes, they do collaborate with other people. SpaceX AI has a footprint. It's insane at this point. It's crazy. Okay, so give me a second. I want to focus on the rocket for a moment. Nothing has happened. Everything's fine. We're 21 minutes away from a fueling go-no-go decision. SpaceX hasn't announced anything either. Let me just check. Like, oh my God, the engine failed. Nope, nothing.
Nope.
Everything's fine.
Countdown is also still.
For anybody who's just joined us, let me bring you up to speed real quick. We're at 12,000 people watching. So thank you so much. If you haven't done so yet, like the stream. If you haven't subscribed to us yet and you like what we're doing here on camera right now, make us that big present of subscribing to the channel. It helps us a lot. It helps us to boost YouTube's algorithm, meaning the more you signal to YouTube that you really like our content, the algorithm is going to share our content to other people, because it's like, oh, wow, look at all these people liking it. So thank you so much for doing that. We're waiting for SpaceX to launch Starship Flight 13 with ship 40 on top, booster 20 on the bottom. There are quite a few. Oh, what is that? Is that SpaceX already being online? No. Okay.
They decided to just do it a bit earlier.
And I looked at the clock. It said 23 minutes, and I was like, what? Okay, no, this is just a replay of the last launch. So, halts down. Okay, so we have ship 40 on top, booster 20 on the bottom, and the biggest changes for this launch are a vastly redesigned hot staging process to make the booster actually achieve its goal of doing its soft landing in the Gulf. They had a few problems on the last flight. The separation didn't work the way it should. The booster flipped 90 degrees offset, and it couldn't make the landing. It's got 33 Raptor 3 engines on the bottom, as you can see in this nice animation playing out there. And 5 of those engines failed during the boost back burn, and so on and so forth. So it was a bit of a cascading problem that got bigger and bigger, and it ended with the booster ripping apart above the ground. It never touched the water, basically. It came down and that was it. And so that's one of the improvements they do for this type. And the second one is that they have, the second big one is that they have real payload on this Starship. So where before they had dummy weight satellites on the Starship, so it was just as big as a Starlink V3 satellite, and it weighed as much as a Starlink V3 satellite, but it wasn't a Starlink V3 satellite. That is changing this time. They have 20 real Starlink V3 satellites in there that are going to deorbit after 20 minutes because they follow that same trajectory, and there's no way for them to reach orbit, but they'll have enough time to link up with each other and with other Starlink satellites from the constellation, and it'll enable SpaceX to test the payload deployment mechanism in a new way. Because while a dummy satellite simulates the weight and the size of a real satellite, it doesn't simulate how a real satellite behaves. How does it behave when it gets cold up in space? How does it behave when it has weight? Like when it's only resting on 2 points because it's being deployed, it might sag in the middle, and so on and so forth, because it's a satellite, it's a complex machine built out of all sorts of different parts, and you can't really simulate that. And so that is a huge difference this time. That will make the payload deployment very interesting. Then we're going to also have a Raptor relight in space, and then we are going to have the Starship re-entering above the Indian Ocean, and hopefully sticking its soft touchdown again, as it's done how many times now? In a row? 4, I think. So SpaceX has kind of nailed that more and more, but this is V3, so it's a new thing. But the last one did incredibly well, because even though it had an engine out, they demonstrated engine out capability, that's what that's called, it still reached its point, its destination, even though there was an engine failing, which is great, and they didn't even, I'm very sure they didn't want to test that, but now they've got that off their list, which is great. And that is what we're waiting for here. We are 17 minutes out from them doing a fueling go, no-go decision, meaning they are going to check all the different positions in the control room. And as soon as everybody gives a thumbs up, they're going to start fueling the Starship. That's what we're looking for right now. Okay. I am right now, together with Cris, answering your questions. If you have a question, write #question into the chat, and we'll pick it up. If you want to be bumped up in the list, combine it with a super chat, because those people are being bumped up, because that is the most important support we have. Super chats are way more important for us than everybody thinks. Most people just think it's just coffee money, you know. But we depend, our production depends on it. So thank you so much to everybody who has done that already, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. Next up, we have, could we potentially see a sea launch? Okay, so Dab 5395, thank you so much for your super chat. Hey, Felix and Cris, thank you for mentioning Cris. I remember a while back, SpaceX acquired oil rigs. Oh yeah, the oil rigs, Dymos and Phobos. SpaceX acquired oil rigs to retrofit for possible launches. When, if ever, could we potentially see sea launch and catch of Starship? So, they are absolutely coming back. That's my opinion. But I know from an internal email at SpaceX that I think even was leaked out, and that's why I'm mentioning it, it was public, that Musk at some point said, scrap all this. We need to follow that critical path, which is really, really important. And part of that, the oil rigs weren't part of the critical path. The critical path is right now to make Starship deploy satellites, because that's what makes it create money for SpaceX, and that'll make everything past it way, way easier. That's why you're seeing them test Starlink satellites on that upper stage right now before everything else, because that'll give them money back. That'll give you actual revenue. They have big plans for Starlink. The constellation as it is right now is just a little bit of what they're actually planning, but they can only continue with Starship to actually create revenue, and then further and further and further finance things. And one of those further and further finance things are the oil rigs. So while in the early stages, they tried to tackle everything at the same time, at one point, they just decided, all right, this is not going to work. We need to reduce it down to the essentials. We need to start building that upper stage and the pad and the booster, and then we need to start focus on what's next, not what's down the line sometime. And that's why they stopped those oil rigs. It's not because they stopped them because it doesn't make sense. And I'm very, very sure they're going to come back because starships are loud.
Yeah.
And if SpaceX wants to launch every 60 minutes, and there are any people living next to it that aren't SpaceX employees, SpaceX is going to get lawsuits. Absolutely. Because I've seen a few of those launches in person. If you haven't seen a Starship launch in person, you do not know. It is incredible. So they're very, very loud. And if they want to actually ramp it up to all those plans of 1,000 Starships to Mars and even more here and many more there, sea launches are a very good thing. You can just build pipelines out to your oil rig. Most oil rigs are connected by pipelines anyway. And you can transport goods over. You have it offshore. It would be a good way to achieve separation from everything else, from people.
Yeah.
So I do think they'll come back. What do you think, Cris?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I mean, logistically, it's not really a problem getting the materials, the payloads, the ships out there, and using a pipeline. You already have the biggest item ticked off the list. So yeah, I think it's absolutely plausible, and you just don't bother as many people. And this will become a huge problem once they start flying in Florida late this year or early next year, because that is so much more close to a lot more people than it is already in Texas.
I'm actually happy I'm renting right now.
Yes. Yes, you can't flee out.
I'm telling you, Falcon 9 makes our house shake.
Oh.
It makes it shake. I am very interested to see what a Starship is going to do with our house. And that's the problem. And if you want to do this every 60 minutes, you can imagine that you're very soon going to have some angry people standing in front of your house. Rightfully so, because they want to enjoy their retirement or go about their life or raise their kids or whatever. And they have nothing to do with your Starship. As if they're not space fans like you guys, like everybody watching this together with us. They're just random people living here and having a good time, you know? And then all of a sudden SpaceX starts launching a Starship every 60 minutes. That is a fun killer for anybody who's not a hardcore space fan. And so the oil rigs are just a very convenient way to escape that. But they've got other stuff as well. First of all, they have Starbase. And the nice thing about that is that most of the people, or almost all the people living next to that, are SpaceX employees. They can't complain. And they won't. And then they have Pecan Island in Louisiana, where they bought 500 square kilometers of land. Or they haven't done it yet. They're in talks. But if they end up doing that, it's going to be like 10 times larger than Starbase? Maybe more.
Which could be like the one super giant PETA factory that is enabling the amount of launches that they want to do. I don't really see that they have to have launch infrastructure there necessarily. This makes total sense.
It's
they might, of course. I guess they will throw up a couple towers anyway. They always need some backup. They are already at the size of the operation. But there's one more thing I wanted to say about the hourly launches. When you think about the pad is already made to launch every 60 minutes. And when you're thinking about having 4 pads at Florida, you could end up doing this every 15 minutes.
I don't see that.
No, I don't see that either.
I honestly don't see that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And so they will need to do this. In my opinion, just as an like somebody on the outside who's been analyzing SpaceX for how many years now, I really do think they will need to bring them back. If you please chat if you have anything, please use freedom units. The problem is I am from Europe. I have a few things that I can already calculate in my head quickly, but the audience is from the entire planet, and so we try to show both on our episodes. But it's really, for me, it's so much easier to use metric. I'm sorry. I'll use it as often as I can, though. Promise. So back to those launches. I think they will need to do this. If you have any other ideas, put it in the chat. But for me, that oil rig concept is the only thing that I could even come up with. I can't imagine anything else that would give them all these things, be separated from people, but still relatively easy to operate.
Yeah, the only other way would be desert, but you would have to have a huge desert to do this, and then again you have
And
to
you're
fly
flying
over
over
land
land.
and you're flying over
Hmm.
cities. So
Yep.
ocean is just way better.
Yep. You're flying over land. That is very dangerous. Even if every launch works, it's a ticking time bomb. At some point, and some point it doesn't.
Yeah,
And then you have a Starship crashing into a city.
yeah.
It's difficult. Even if it just crashes into the countryside, it would be a
Hmm.
huge disaster for SpaceX.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't harm anybody, imagine the outrage that would happen from that. And the oil rig would fix all of that. So I do think that the oil rig was just shelved for now, but not canceled. That's how I think about it. And I hope we're going to see something soon. I've got my ears open, so you can bet that as soon as we do get new information, you are going to see it on the channel. I have not forgotten about those. I was a huge fan of what happened there. Okay, we have them Clawglin 5. Thank you so much for your super chat. Big fan from Nova Scotia, Canada. Oh, so that's very, very nice. Thank you so much. That's,
I think it was
Nova
the
Scotia?
McLaughlin 5.
The McLaughlin 5. That sounds very Scottish.
Well, they're from New Scotland, from Nova Scotia.
Yeah. Let me see. Where is Nova Scotia? Oh, wow. Okay, hi to you guys all the way up at the polar circle almost. This is absolutely amazing. I've never been there. The highest up I've ever been to you was I think I was in Salem, which is in New Hampshire, I think. Yeah, I was there because of the witch stuff that happened like 400 years or 300 years ago. It was very interesting, actually. I would recommend. So I've been close to you. Very nice. Thank you so much for the super chat. We have Booman 200123. Thank you so much for your super chat. Hi from Tennessee. My super chat was missed during Flight 12C. There you go. When catching a ship and booster, will they use the same tower? Oh yeah. I even saw that question earlier and somebody said that wouldn't really be possible. It is possible. On Flight 14, will the booster and ship be caught? They could theoretically absolutely do that because, and that is something that most people don't think about, is the booster needs to come back right away because it isn't reaching orbit. So there is a clock ticking until that thing hits the ground again, and you cannot stop it. So you have to catch that first. But for the ship, as soon as it reaches orbit, and that is needed for a catch because it needs to circle the entire planet, so it needs to go into orbit at least for a moment. Otherwise, it will not reach the other side. And as soon as it is in that orbit, it can coast. That's what that's called. It can coast for a day, 2, 3, it doesn't matter. So you have plenty of time to just, it doesn't not matter at all, but you can coast for a day or two easily. And so they can just take the booster, they catch the booster with the tower, take it off, roll it away, and a few hours later, the ship comes down and gets caught by the same tower. So they can absolutely do this with one pad, yes. And I think that's going to be the plan as well. If they do catch the ship, I would be very surprised if they wouldn't catch the booster because that's the headline. If they catch both,
Yeah.
that is going to be the big headline. That's going to go around the planet, especially with their
Goosebumps.
IPO right now. Exactly. That'll be that headline. SpaceX does it all. And so I'm very sure they're going to do that. Yes, it's beautiful. Elliot's beautiful animations. He just finished this a week ago. It's a Starship re-entering. He had a lot of trouble rendering that one. There's a lot of sweat going into all this stuff. It's amazing to work with this team. So thank you, Elliot. All right, we have I am Palo Poli. I'm sorry. 3226. Thank you so much for the super chat. I am 32 now. I started studying engineering while working because of you guys, with chemistry and propellants. Thank you so much. These kinds of people are needed right now. If what happens with the space industry, what I predict is going to happen, you are going to have a job for the next 1,000 years if you want to. Thank you so much for the compliment. It really means a lot to us. It's always been the crazy part. I've had a professor from Rice University send me a copy of his book because he wanted me to read it. All this kind of stuff is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. And I hope you're going to enjoy studying engineering. That's one of the coolest topics anyway. Engineering is still, if I would have studied something, it would have been engineering. Absolutely. Stephen Meek, 8711, thank you so much for your super chat. How many hours will an orbital flight likely last? Well, that's the thing, it's orbital. So until they're at the edge of fuel bleed off. As soon as you can, fuel bleeds off constantly because it is a super cool liquid that is in those tanks. And when the sun hits the Starship hull in space, it heats up remarkably quick. And that makes that fuel inside boil, and then it's vented off as the same way the tower does it right now. And that means over time, you're losing your propellants. And Starships do not have a solar panel, at least right now they don't. So they're also losing their electricity on the batteries. So you just have a certain amount of time you can stay in space with a Starship, but I would be very surprised if it was, there's probably weeks at least, that a Starship should be able to stay in space and then still re-enter. So it's on SpaceX's side, the decision. The first one is not going to be that much, I'm pretty sure. It's probably going to be a few orbits until the booster is cleared off the tower. That's my idea. That's what I think they're going to do, because it would just be the headline. And then the Starship is going to come down after that. And every orbit is 90 minutes, roughly. A little bit less, actually, if you're below the ISS, but not much. And you can keep it up there. Keep it and keep it and keep it for a day, 2, 3, 4, however long they decide. I think the first one is going to be a few hours. That should be enough time to take the booster off the tower and clear it. And even if they don't catch the booster, you will want to check the pad before you start catching. And as long as you have the time, they're going to use that. And that means they keep the Starship in orbit for some time.
Yeah.
Going to be very interesting. 3 minutes away from the fueling decision. Camera is frozen right now. There we go. Yeah, you can see what I said all the way in the beginning of the live stream. You can see that everything's spooled up now. Everything is venting and doing things and pre-chilling the lines and so on and so forth. I see another 250 people have just subscribed to us while Cris and I were talking. Thank you so much for joining us. It's incredible every time, and it never gets old. And we have 15,000 people watching now, and it's absolutely nuts. It really is. Thank you so much. If you've just joined us, we're waiting for SpaceX to start to launch Starship Flight 13 today. We have Ship 40 on top and Booster 20 on the bottom. This is the second V3 launch SpaceX has ever done, and it's already visible that this one has way less problems than the first one had. They struggled with the pad because everything's new, and so they had sensors that weren't correctly calibrated because they were never able to test a real launch scenario, and so on and so forth. And all that seems to be gone on this flight. So fingers crossed that this is going to actually work out. Because if it does, on Flight 14, we're going to possibly see a ship catch, and I am so looking forward to that. That's amazing. All right. If you want to, Cris, keep everybody busy. I'll take a short break, and I'll be back in, let's say 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. And fingers crossed on the go, no-go decision for fueling. SpaceX usually announces that right away. I'll be back in just 5 minutes or so. Thank you, guys.
Okay. I'm just going to take the next question here. What do we have here? From Alaska with love. Thank you very, very much, Mizin27, for your super chat. And the next one. How can we know if they changed things about the separation? That is an interesting question because it's not quite clear. The thing is, we already talked about how the separation is working, that you have the upper stage that is basically kicking itself up from the lower stage while already giving it a push for the turnaround so that it can go back to base. And they did change this from V2 to V3. They did this from 1 to 2. But other than that, I think we should see the same basic principle that we saw on the last flight on this one. Right, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't change much as far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more in the sequence of relighting the engines, but Felix already talked about this earlier as well.
And I think,
So,
real quick, we can also look at the tower vent because Felix was talking about the go/no-go pull for fueling.
yeah,
And we can see a lot of venting from the tower vent. You can see it here in the bottom right. So they're definitely pre-chilling the lines to the ship already. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to be not a go. If you get
no,
what I mean.
no, it definitely looks like it. We can see that since it's already venting in the tower and venting in a big way, you can see that the lines up until this point are ready to do the fueling. So, yeah, they are perfectly going forward, and it would be a huge surprise if they end up with a no fueling decision.
Yeah,
But
I'm
we
sitting
never
here
know.
refreshing the X page all the time. Because technically the pull should be right now.
Yeah, the poll, but the poll obviously takes a couple of minutes as well.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm gonna go for the question by Urgent Hopper 19. If Booster 20 and Ship 40 perform nominally on this flight, do you think they will get a booster cache and the ship splash down the go for Flight 14? We've talked about it a lot now that we are basically already expecting that they will try to catch both the ship and the booster on the next flight. A worldview, thank you. Will you invite some SpaceX employees to a chat in a live stream? It's a good question. It's something that I would definitely totally enjoy to have a SpaceX engineer here. But yeah, if somebody at SpaceX says, "Hey, I've got plenty of time during a launch, so I want to join the live stream," I think just hit us up. I don't think that will be a problem getting you in here. And the next one is by Antilles Wedge 8743. When do you think the first Starship flight from Florida will be? Officially, I think they're still targeting December for this. So I think officially they are still on the road to trying it this year. If they don't manage that, I totally expect them doing this early next year, sorry. The entire building process there is going well. We've seen how they did this pad, so we have some sort of idea at which stage they are already, and also they've already done it, so it's a bit faster now this time, and everything looks good there. Or Jonathan, what's your stance on that?
Yeah, so I mean, they've learned a lot from the two pads, and especially the second one here. So I very much wouldn't be surprised if they can hit the date they're planning for.
Yeah. And which also is another interesting thing there, because they are already at a point where they will soon need hardware just to do fit checking. So I expect to see a booster go into the Cape pretty soon, because without an actual booster, they won't be able to do fit checks. And I don't think that they're far off that.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. So
So,
nothing on X from 26 though.
so the next question is by Stealth Gaming 2. Do you know how much water there is available for the pads? Is there enough water to supply to sustain 15 launches every 60 minutes on a pad? That's also, again, basically a problem of how much can you store and how much can you have in perpetuality if you're just going forward with it. If you want to like do one every 60 minutes forever, you will definitely have to lay another pipeline, because we do need water, since you can't reclaim it all. The water is evaporated in the process. We see steam building up, and that water obviously is lost. So you don't just have the same puddle of water beneath the pad after the launch, and you have to have more water to go for the next one. So right now with the tank farm, no way.
No, right now, definitely not.
Yeah, with the way that's configured at the moment.
Even with like propellants for the last launch, I'm pretty sure we saw tanker trucks going to the propellant farm like 2 hours or 3 hours before the launch.
Yeah.
So nope.
Yeah, which they
Definitely
did
not
already just to make sure that if they have to recycle and try it again the next day, that they have enough gas on site. So
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. They just need these pipelines to go forward, which also shows how much the entire operation is ramping up.
I think while we're still waiting for that go/no-go poll, we can probably we'll quick look at the pre-launch timeline. So you can see the go/no-go poll for propellant loading flashing there, as we're still expecting that, but we don't have a confirmation for it yet. And then, of course, hopefully, if we still get that in time, I mean, we can expect. Oh, actually, we do have it right there.
Okay.
So 30 seconds ago, they said that they're go for propellant load. Should we probably talk that
Perfect.
fast? So that means that at 35 minutes and 30 seconds before, we'll see the first action on prop loading. Getting close.
Absolutely. And we've already talked about this before today, that we will see the fastest prop loading they ever did because they managed to shave off a few minutes again. They're getting to know the pad better, they're getting to know the systems better, so they can get the margins down a bit and turn that over into speed. And these few minutes are already 10% of the operation. It's insane how fast they can iterate and get this thing to even higher capacity and even faster loading times. Amazing. Okay, I just see that Felix is also coming back here. Yep, got a thumbs up there. Welcome back.
Thank you. It is Starship launch day, everybody.
Yes.
do we already have a
Confirmation? Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We had it
All right,
2 minutes ago.
Did you already talk about that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, that means
But
we're on
you
track.
can very much talk about it again.
Well, it means that everybody in the control room, there are all sorts of different stations there monitoring different parts of the ship and the booster and the pad. And they all gave their thumbs up for fueling operations, meaning now, and you can already see the thrust line forming there on the booster. I think at least.
Yeah, we should be a bit too early. I think the
we're
loading
like
is
5 minutes out.
yeah.
Exactly. But that means soon we're going to see SpaceX fuel the entire vehicle, the booster and the ship. It is done in an incredibly short amount of time, 37 minutes. They're pumping thousands of tons of fuel in just 37 minutes, which is another example, for SpaceX already preparing for fast launch cadence. It's all baked in already. This isn't the test pad one that we had before. This is the design that is supposed to get SpaceX to the point where they can actually launch every 60 minutes at some point, which is completely nuts. They're going to have a pipeline, a dedicated pipeline from the port of Brownsville connected directly to the launch facility to be able to get all the commodities in. If they wouldn't do that, Highway 4, the road leading to Starbase, would be a permanent chain of tanker trucks. That's how much fuel would be needed for this kind of stuff. They would never disappear. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. Thank you so much for joining us. We're at 17,200 people watching right now, which is an incredible amount of people for everybody on the team. Just to let you know once more, we really, really appreciate this. If you haven't done so yet, like the stream. It's just one click. And if we're doing a good job, I think we do deserve it. Subscribe to the channel, because my goal, maybe we can actually make it, because we're just 1,700 subscribers away from it now. I would like to reach 655,000 today, because that would get us back onto the goal of reaching 700,000 subscribers by the end of the year, which would mean we get 100,000 subscribers per year, which is absolutely insane. And it would get us on track to having the 1 million subscribers after 10 years, which would be amazing. We've been doing this for 7 years now. And I'm always the first guy on the Discord to say, I'm pumped, we're having another launch. And so this never gets old. And I'm very, very happy that everybody's watching this with us. If you have questions for us, type them into the chat with a #question. I just talked about the idea that we had earlier, by the way. So a #question. And if you want to be bumped up in that list even further, connect it to a super chat, because those super chats are not just coffee money. They're always called the coffee money, but they help us so much. We buy equipment with this. We have several things that we want to buy again. We for example, right now, we need a gyro stabilizer for Jordan, because we want to produce better video on the helicopter. And anybody who's ever done video on a helicopter knows that it's extremely difficult because of vibration, because the entire helicopter vibrates while it is flying. And so it makes it extremely hard to get good video footage. But if we could buy a gyro stabilizer that has 4 8-inch balls rotating at 20,000 RPM. It's a really cool toy, but the thing costs $5,000. So that is what you're funding with these super chats. So thank you so much for that. And without further ado, I'm going to try to answer as many questions or we are going to try to answer as many questions as we can right now. And to just grab that idea again, I just finalized it. Every question that is right now not answered, we're going to record a separate episode, Cris and I, and go through those questions to answer them for you. So nothing here should be wasted. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, cool. And it's Starship launch day. That's the best day.
I think it's time for the hype train, isn't it? I mean,
oh yeah, we have a tradition here. Exactly. For anybody who doesn't know this yet, I'm going to start it real quick. Type this into the chat and get the hype train going. Oh, that was a thunderstorm outside. We have winds picking up here massively. I hope I won't have a power outage. For anybody who doesn't know Florida, that is very common here in the summer. It's called the wet season, and you have thunderstorms every day. And I just stood outside for a minute to grab some fresh air while I took my break. There's the hype train, by the way. That's what I meant. Thank you so much, guys, for doing this with us every time. It puts a huge smile on everybody on the team. Thank you. So we have a thunderstorm coming in. The trees are already starting to bend out there. Let's just hope. There's a helicopter flying by. They do range safety. So they fly around the launch pad. You saw that helicopter just now on the upper right camera. They're flying around the range, the exclusion zone, to make sure there's no problem, no boats, no tourists who want to be the crazy guy to watch the launch from 500 yards away, which you really shouldn't do, by the way. Stay outside those exclusion zones. Stick to SpaceX's rules if you're out there. It is extremely important because, well, that's what makes, as soon as people start breaking those rules, SpaceX will start limiting our access. So stick to the rules, be nice, behave, don't leave your trash in the dunes, and stick to the signs and stick to the rules out there, and then everything's fine. For everybody who's out there right now enjoying the launch, you're in for an absolutely massive ride. For anybody who hasn't done this yet, go and take a look. In 8 minutes, SpaceX will go live, and then we will start talking less because I think SpaceX always knows best. So I don't want to interrupt them. So we have to speed talk through a few more questions here. Okay, is this a new question? Do you know how much?
We already had this.
Okay. Oh, we had this one. Okay, so then the next one would be Timmy. Thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you, Felix and team, for all the great work you do. I've been a bit out of the loop recently. What's the latest chatter on long-term feasibility for the Heatshield? And what's Stoke been up to? Yeah, Stoke is doing a different thing, and I'm very curious to see if it actually works out, because Stoke didn't go for heat tiles. Stoke went for an aspirationally cooled active heat shield, which is a really, really cool solution. It's way different. It would take long to explain that in detail right now, but it doesn't involve heat tiles. Heat tiles are delicate. I have several heat tiles here. Give me just 1 second. All right, here we go. I put the headphones back on, and I'll show you some interesting stuff with these that you've likely never seen before, because these heat tiles, I've often heard from people, why don't they just put them on the pad? You know, they're heat resistant, so why not just do this instead of a flame diverter? The problem is this, and there's probably going to be a few people crying right now every time I do that. Like, here's a part that's slightly damaged on the heat tile, and if I scratch on it, you see the stuff falling down? Yeah, I know, I shouldn't do that. But it is very, very brittle. And so that's the core problem of, what's that video? Okay, so that's the biggest, no problem. That's the biggest problem with these heat tiles, is they're very, very brittle. They're extremely good at storing and shedding heat energy, but they're really, really bad with kinetic energy, like force, blunt force on them. So they break and they chip off, and they do all this stuff that you don't want a heat shield to do, and that's the problem with them. There really isn't there's a heat tile test they're running right now with the material just withstanding any sort of blast. That's what they're good at. But like I said, they're not very strong, and that's the problem. And if you want to have a heat shield that is not ablative, so that doesn't flake off while protecting, because you want it to be reusable, that becomes a problem. Cris?
We have confirmation that prop load has begun.
Great. So that's the heat tile. That's one of them. You can see there's these metal pieces inside the heat tile here. That's where those pins attach that are welded to the hull. There's 3 of those attachment points on each heat tile. This is a standard heat tile. There are heat tiles in other places of the Starship that are differently formed. You see them in the bakery there. That's the process how they produce them. And this is one of those heat tiles. That is what you can see there going through that oven. And this is actually from SN11, I think. Huge shout out to, what's his name? Man, Robert. His name is Robert. Huge shout out to Robert for gifting these to me. I don't know how many times I used them on the channel to explain something, and I do think if I ever not need them anymore, I'm going to give them to a museum around the area so that other people can take a look at them. They are one of my most precious things that I have in the studio, because it's always better if you can actually show something, and that's the real deal. And so that's the problem with those heat tiles. And the best thing you can do is make it as comfortable for the tiles as possible while going up, because you need them for going down. And that's basically the only thing that SpaceX can do. They can refine how the gaps between the tiles are managed. They can refine what's under the tiles to have a little bit of extra protection if one of those heat tiles fails. There's this mineral felt under the heat tiles, this white stuff, that gives a little bit of extra protection if a heat tile falls off. But the material itself is where the limit is. There is no magic box that we can just open up and take out a better material. It needs to be found. And there isn't anything that is as good and as mass producible as these heat tiles. So there really isn't a good solution. That's the problem. You can just make sure that they don't break and that they don't fall off, and that if it does happen, there is a fail-safe under them. And the next thing you do for reusability is speed up your heat shield inspection process. I am very sure that at some point there's going to be a fully automated system in these bays, in the Gigabay. You just park the ship inside of it, and a robot arm starts inspecting every tile and finds defects and replaces those as quick as possible. I think that's the best way to... Okay. SpaceX is about to go live. They're already live, but they're not talking yet. There you go.
It's 5:13 p.m. Central Time, and we are 31 minutes and 38 seconds away from Starship Flight 13, the second flight test of our next generation Starship version 3. You see it there on your screen. I'm Kate Tice, Senior Manager, Quality Systems Engineering.
And I'm Nathan Commissary, a civil engineer here at SpaceX. Today, we are coming to you live from just outside the floor of Star Factory, our 1 million square foot rocket factory where we build Starship.
Yeah, I don't know what's cooler, the rocket or the place where we build it. Now, back in May, the first flight test of Starship version 3 delivered tons of data, and we'll be putting those learnings into practice today on Flight 2. All of this brings us one step closer to a fully and rapidly reusable vehicle, the key to enabling frequent flights to the Moon and Mars. Starship will also enhance Starlink's constellation and connectivity on Earth, the Moon, and beyond, while helping establish a network of AI data centers in space. Success on today's suborbital mission also opens the door for near-future orbital flights and our first attempt to catch ship on Tower 2 here at Starbase.
Pretty exciting, and this is also an exciting day for the Starlink team because we are planning to deploy 20 of the newest Starlink satellites. These sats aren't intended for operational use and will only be in space for about 20 minutes before demising, but during that 20 minutes, we're going to speedrun a bunch of tests, things like deploying solar arrays, firing thrusters. We'll get into those details a little later in the show.
Yeah. Now, what Starlink engineers learned today will be essential to deploying operational V3 satellites into the Starlink constellation on future Starship flights. These larger, more powerful next-generation satellites are designed to boost orbital capacity, strengthen the overall network, and deliver a noticeably better experience for our customers.
And as we've said before, Starship is a developmental program. What we're doing today is a test. We test in flight because it's the best way to rapidly iterate the design by putting the vehicle through its paces in the actual conditions it will experience during an operational mission.
Exactly. So while we have real Starlink satellites on board, the most important payload today is data. But no matter the outcome of today's test flight, as usual, excitement is guaranteed.
Now let's head a couple of floors upstairs where Dan Hewitt is just outside the Launch Control Center. How's it going, Dan?
Hey, Nathan. It is going great. Hi to Kate as well. And hey, everybody else. I'm Dan Hewitt with SpaceX Communications. It's great to be back here with you, flying from Starbase just a couple of weeks after the last one. That was Flight 12. That was in May. We debuted a lot of new hardware, all of it flying for the first time. We're going to dig into some of the details in a minute on how that flight went, but it came with a bunch of exciting wins, some important lessons. But let's look at right now. Things are looking very good. We are not tracking any issues on the vehicle or on the pad. Just behind me in the Launch Control Center, we've got engineers on console looking at the rocket, all the systems as we count down. We have started propellant load, putting liquid oxygen, liquid methane on both stages of Starship, and we're looking good right now to launch at the open of our window at 5:45 p.m. Central Time. Weather is barely worth mentioning. We came in today with about a 90% probability of go, and we've got blue skies, scattered clouds, no scary winds. We're looking really good. Range is also currently green for launch. Reminder, we're watching the range both off the coast in the Gulf here at Starbase, and also on the other side of the planet in the Indian Ocean, where we are hopefully sending the Starship in just a couple of minutes from now. All right, so before we dig into everything else for today, let's take a look back real quick at Flight 12. Now, as I said, that was the first launch of a new ship, new booster, new Raptor engine, first flight from Pad 2 here at Starbase. A lot went right, and the stuff that didn't still gave us really valuable flight data to continue building a better Starship. Like all flights, we lifted off right at the top of the window, 33 Raptor engines propelling that full stack skyward from Starbase. After we got through liftoff, booster ascent, it was Starship's turn, lit its engines for hot staging. We tried to flip the booster in a specific direction that gives us more performance. We had some differences in engine startup. We were off by about 90 degrees. We've modified that startup sequence, made it more robust to flip in the right direction. Super Heavy attempted its boost back burn. 5 engines experienced issues when attempted to relight, so we had an early end to that. We made some hardware modifications to improve relight reliability and updated our alarms and aborts. That booster attempted a landing burn as it approached the Gulf. That was unsuccessful, and it ended its flight with a hard splashdown in the hazard area. Now, while that was happening, Starship made its ascent into space. About 40 seconds after stage step, though, we lost one of those 3 Raptor vacuum engines. Still able to demonstrate our engine out capability, reach the planned suborbital trajectory. We've made some hardware operational changes on this flight and have some additional reliability improvements coming in the future. Once in space, Starship was able to deploy all 20 of the Starlink simulators, 2 modified Starlink satellites that got these brief shots of Starship in space, which was dope. We skipped the in-space burn due to engine issues, but then Starship got ready to re-enter the atmosphere. It was able to do a flap stressing test and did the maneuver to mimic the trajectory that future missions returning to Starbase are going to fly. Then it got to the pre-planned splashdown zone in the Indian Ocean, where we had drones and buoys ready and waiting. After the Raptors turned on for a flip, landing burn, Starship was in the water, and Flight 12 was in the books. So, a lot of excitement, a lot of firsts, a lot of learnings. All that set us up for round 2 today. Just getting to a launch day comes with a bunch of hurdles, a ton of problems to solve, a million little stories. Here's just a quick peek into one of those stories that was on the path to Flight 12 that we featured in the 2nd episode of our ongoing documentary, Starship.
Fantastic documentary, by the way.
We designed this pad to be able to support a launch every 60 minutes indefinitely. The thing about Pad 1 is it was designed to be very quick to build, it was designed to be very cheap, and it was designed to give good access to the aft end of the booster. The reason all of those things were a design goal is because we sucked at building Starship pads and we sucked at building Starships. It's like we didn't know what we were doing because it was impossible to know what you were doing because no one had ever done something like this before. The brief on that one was, hey, get something up very quick and very scrappy and very inexpensively, but that's okay. It actually needs to just be good enough for us to learn. And then if we can learn from it, we'll go build the actual good thing. I mean, the integration mechanism is the pad. The catch mechanism is the pad. All of this stuff is like integral to how the pad operates. And so the reason we call it stage 0 is literally it is the first stage of the launch process. And if it is not working, we cannot go launch. And so that certainly like raises the stakes and raises the priority and like drama whenever things go wrong on the pad. Post static fire, as we were transiting the chopstick arms back to a lower position, we heard a loud noise out at the pad.
It's vibrating an entire tower. Something got jammed up in the chain and maybe it caused it to snap. We don't really know if it's broken completely or if it's just cockeyed or buckled in some way. God, it sounds terrible. So we are in a mad dash to get that roller diagnosed and replaced as soon as possible.
The chop carriage has many rollers positioned at different parts around the tower. And when I say roller, it's literally like imagine the world's largest bicycle chain. It's built almost exactly like a bike chain, except for it's 380 pounds. And the chop carriage weighs a lot. And so it basically broke one of those links. The chain got bound up. And the day after static fire, we called our buddies at the Cape. We had some spare units over there for building the Cape towers. We're able to hot shot to overnight the chain to us, got the old chain torn apart, got the new one put together, flew it up, and the morning after that, we were ready to rock.
Hey, with these ones, make sure we're going up. Arriba.
It was on the order of like 30 hours, 36 hours from we found the problem to had it fully back in service. On like an item that was not really designed to be very serviceable. To be able to come up with a scrappy plan, you know, temp support it with cranes, get in there and boogie is like, that's like just classic SpaceX nonsense.
Beautiful.
Man, I love this docuseries. It's not just behind the scenes, it's in the scenes.
It's the day in the life of working here at Starbase. It's awesome.
Yeah. Now, if that scrappy problem solving that Steyer described inspires you, if you want to be a scrappy problem solver with us and the team here, come on over and help us build the future. All right, let's meet the rocket there on the pad, Starship version 3, the most powerful rocket ever developed, ever flown.
That's right. At just over 407 feet tall, fully stacked, it is massive. Standing at the base and looking up is like looking up at a 40-story building. Insane.
It's crazy. It's a 2-stage rocket. Both stages are designed to fly to Earth to return to Earth and fly again, making this the first fully reusable rocket ever. The bottom half, or the first stage, is the Super Heavy booster. That's the silver part at the bottom. It's powered by 33 of our newest iteration Raptor 3 engines, you see them there, and those run on liquid methane and oxygen. This version of Raptor provides a significant increase in thrust. With that additional thrust, fun fact, this version of Starship gets off the pad faster than our previous versions. Here you can see version 1 Starship on the left, V2 in the middle, and V3 on the right. That was our first flight of V3 on Flight 12, and that thing just leaps off the pad.
That's right. Now, Super Heavy also has 3 grid fins now, which you can think of as aerodynamic rudders to help steer during landing. They're 50% larger than on the previous booster version and are designed to support rapid reuse and a more stable atmospheric reentry.
At the top of the booster is the hot stage adapter. It's designed to protect the booster during separation and is now fully integrated for reusability.
And stacked right above that is our upper stage of the rocket, or stage 2, which is what we call ship. It's powered by 6 Raptor engines, 3 optimized for sea level performance and 3 for the vacuum of space.
Ship's design could one day enable point-to-point transfer on Earth, meaning you could travel anywhere on the planet, just like an airplane, but this time in an hour or less. It's designed to carry massive orbital payloads, cargo and crew, to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond.
And for the first time, we're carrying real Starlink V3 satellites to space. For more on that, let's head out to California, where Tyler is standing by with the team in Hawthorne. How's it going, Tyler?
Nice.
Hey, thank you so much, Kate and Nate. I'm Tyler Lionquist, a Starlink business analyst here at SpaceX. And for those of you who have been following along, the Starlink version 3 satellites have been designed to take full advantage of Starship's payload capacity. We're going to get our first look at those satellites today. The Starlink V3 is our next-gen satellite and includes meaningful increases in capacity, data density, and power generation. We'll be adding around 20 times the capacity into the constellation on each Starship mission as compared to the version 2 satellites that we currently launch on Falcon. That means that we'll be able to serve more people all around the world with increasingly better high-speed internet. Like all of the Starlink satellites, the V3s are built at Starlink's site in Redmond, Washington, where we already build more satellites than anyone else in the world today. The Starlink V3 sats are designed to support 1 terabit per second of downlink and 160 gigabits per second of uplink capacity. That's approximately a 10 times improvement in downlink capacity and a 22 times increase in uplink capacity from the version 2 Starlink satellite. Serving this capacity to and from customers are the satellite's upgraded phased array antennas. The upgraded phased arrays are fed by SpaceX's in-house developed chips that were designed to serve customers more efficiently in both densely and sparsely populated regions simultaneously. Each Starlink V3 satellite is also equipped with 6 high-capacity 400 gigabit space lasers. These 6 lasers will allow high-bandwidth traffic to flow uninterrupted between any 2 points in the world with redundant paths across a petabit laser mesh network. And if that wasn't enough, the V3s will carry 4 quad-band radio frequency backhaul antennas. These will take advantage of the Ka, E, V, and W communication bands, allowing for an 8 times improvement in the supported capacity compared to our V2 sats. Now that's a lot of growth in capacity and capability, and as such, the new satellite design requires more power. So the solar arrays on V3 will generate approximately twice as much power as the current arrays that we fly on the V2 satellites. And they're also optimized to reduce drag in the lower orbital altitudes in which these satellites will operate. But before we operationalize these satellites, we want to put them in a flight-like environment. So these satellites were just loaded into Starship yesterday ahead of today's launch. And once deployed, the Starlink team will only have about 20 minutes of flight to speed run some tests before the sats demise in the atmosphere. Now, the team will attempt to run tests such as extending the new solar arrays and antennas, connecting with ground stations, and turning on the satellite's communication systems. And this is all part of SpaceX's iterative process to technology advancement. And from the beginning, Starlink was designed to scale rapidly and improve continuously. From production to launch and ground infrastructure, Starlink is uniquely positioned to keep pace with rising demand around the world. In fact, just this week, we rolled out the next generation Starlink kit V5, which is built for reliable, high-speed home internet.
Why are they using an angle grinder in the background? Yay, that's the new kit. Okay. For anybody who's just joined us, they are just presenting the new Starlink kit. We have 31,000 people watching right now. Thank you so much for joining us. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel. It's very, very important to us. If you haven't done so yet, go to our Patreon page, buy yourself a t-shirt, have a good time with us. We are very, very close, 15 minutes and 45 seconds out from my launch.
Satellites, and we've also got development work ongoing on an entirely new satellite, our AI data center satellite StarMind. I actually got to sit down recently with Elon and our director of satellite engineering, Ian Dahl. We covered a whole lot of stuff. The focus really was on the 3 limiting factors to making data centers in space a reality. The first factor we really dug into was needing way more mass to orbit. We're talking megatons, and that's where Starship comes in by combining full reusability, massive payload capacity that's essential to launch the number of satellites that we're talking about, because we plan to deploy up to 1 million AI satellites, and those are going to function as orbital data centers, leveraging Starship for that high volume, low cost launch. There's a couple of reasons why moving data centers to space has some pretty immediate advantages over building them here on Earth, which takes us to our next limiting factor, and that's power generation. Because guess what? It's always sunny in space. Satellites can harness near constant solar energy. I mean, you're tapping into an energy source that becomes the only way to scale if AI continues to grow at the pace that it is. Especially when you contrast.
Is that just me, or
with all of the challenges we see here on Earth? Within about 2 to 3 years, we believe
we're working on it. Very sorry. They had an angle grinder working in the background earlier as well.
Launch costs drop and Earth-based power constraints grow. So it's going to just transform how our planet powers AI. And to unlock all of that, we get to our third limiting factor. We need to make significantly more chips, and we got to do it fast. And that's where we're going with Terafab. This is going to be the most epic chip building effort ever. And we say epic. You just look at the scale of this thing. That's the size of a Tesla Gigafactory, about 10 million square feet. We need to think bigger. We're looking at about 100 million square feet. So you're talking 10 gigafactories worth of space. It all sounds a bit fantastical, a bit out there, but all of this together represents a step towards becoming a galactic civilization, harnessing more power from our nearest star, supporting the reality shifting AI applications that are coming, and advancing humanity's multiplanetary future. So if you want to learn more about that, you can watch that full conversation on our website at SpaceXAI/StarMine. So a lot of really cool stuff coming. Kate, future looking pretty sweet, but first things first, Flight 13.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The future is built on progressive steps like today's test. Now, let's dive into the flight profile.
Right, so today we'll be starting with liftoff of Pad 2 here at Starbase. Super Heavy will ignite those 33 Raptor 3 engines, and we will then power through ascent ahead of our hot stage separation, which is when the booster will shut down all but 5 engines at the bottom. Stage 2 will then light its own Raptor engines, pushing off of Super Heavy and starting that hot stage separation. We will then have the directional booster flip, with Super Heavy igniting those 33 Raptor engines. And after coasting for a few minutes, the booster will then target a landing burn and splashdown a few miles off the coast of Starbase.
Ship keeps the fun going with its ascent burn to a suborbital trajectory. We then deploy those 20 Starlink V3 satellites, and we plan to relight a single Raptor engine. Reentry then follows a few minutes later, which should provide some amazing views via Starlink of the ship's blistering reentry through the Earth's atmosphere. A plasma blanket will form around the vehicle, and this never fails to provide epic scenes as the vehicle comes back.
This continues to be green. Reminder, we're tracking the range out in the Gulf off the coast of Starbase where we're launching over, and then also out in the Indian Ocean where we're hopefully sending a Starship in just about 11 minutes from now. Weather looks gorgeous. Blue skies, low winds, couple of clouds, not a concern for flight today. And again, the vehicle and the pad both looking great. We are in kind of the latter stages of propellant loading. We got into the go, no go with the flight control team at about T-minus 1 hour. And then we've been loading prop for about, quick math, about 26 minutes now. We're going to continue loading propellant, that's your liquid oxygen, your liquid methane, onto both of these vehicles until just a little over 2 minutes before we lift off. We'll close out on the ship at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and on the booster before that at about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So at the moment, we're looking good. We're counting down to the very top of our window. It was a 90-minute window. It opens right at 5:45 p.m. Central Time. Looking good to hit that right at the top. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Now, as teams
We're
prepare for
unstoppable.
today's launch from Texas, work is also continuing on the other side of the Gulf in Florida, where Starship will soon be launching, potentially later this year.
That's right. Starship flights from Florida will initially lift off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Teams are working through Starship system activations, performing initial tower chopstick motion tests, confirming the operation of the hold downs on the launch mount, and performing multiple integrated tests of the propellant farms, water farm, diverter, and launch mount. With Starship coming to 39A, the launch complex will soon have 2 operational pads for 2 very different rockets with Starship and Falcon Heavy. It has been awesome to see the 39A Starship program come to life over several years, and it's going to be exciting to soon see a Starship launch from this historic pad.
Yeah, we're super excited. But 39A isn't SpaceX's only pad in Florida. Just a few miles down the coast at Space Launch Complex 37, the first of 2 Starship launch pads at that site is quickly taking shape. Pad 37A is targeted to be ready for flight operations early next year, which is very fast considering we only started construction on the pad in November. This year, teams have worked through ground preparations at the pad and fuel farms while also fully excavating the flame trench for Pad 37A. In June, stacking began of the launch and catch tower, and you can see that there on your screen. And we have plans to complete that stacking in the coming weeks.
And a few miles west of Pad 37 is our Cape Giga Bay, where all Starship vehicles in Florida will be processed for flight. Recently, teams finished erecting all of the building's steel and are now working to finish the exterior of the structure. In the coming weeks, SpaceX will complete activation of the first crane in the building, set up the first integration stands, and complete platform work to be ready for supporting the first Starship vehicles that will arrive in Florida. We'll transport the rockets from Texas to Florida, and honestly, it's just going to be so exciting to see a Starship take flight from the Space Coast. Especially exciting as I had the opportunity to play a role in the Starship Cape program in my previous role, so
that's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Clearly, SpaceX's future in Florida is coming together quickly with planned launches already on the horizon, including regular trips to the moon. And speaking of the moon, NASA recently announced the Artemis 3 crew for the next moon mission. Let's head back up to Dan for more on that.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I mean, we're not going to take a minute. We're not going to take a minute to nerd out a little bit about the moon. So NASA just announced the Artemis 3 mission. That's going to be a crewed demonstration flight into low Earth orbit designed to demonstrate a lot of the critical systems needed for future lunar landings. We've got our astronaut crew, 4, 3 from NASA, 1 from the European Space Agency. Randy Bresnik, Luca Parmitano, Frank Rubio, and Andre Douglas are going to crew that mission slated for 2027. That's going to be the penultimate mission, the final test before Artemis attempts to put astronaut boots back on the moon for the first time since 1972. For our part, we're going to be launching a Starship with a docking port on the nose so we can practice rendezvous and docking with the crew inside of Orion. One of our key test objectives is going to come after docking, where we're going to be able to test out the maneuverability of both vehicles while they're connected. This has some extra importance as the revamp plan for the Artemis landing missions are going to use Starship to do the burn that sends astronauts to the moon from Earth orbit. And one other cool ad that just came out today, NASA's going to be putting 2 SpaceX mini lasers on Orion to connect it to our Starlink constellation, where we already use thousands of lasers today. And they're going to be doing that with the goal of enabling 4K imagery and video from the spacecraft while they're in space. So a lot of excitement planned for next year as we all work together to send humans back to the moon, begin building a moon base, get to that future where anybody that wants to go to the moon is going to hopefully be able to go to the moon. So lots of really cool stuff to come. For now, though, we're at T-minus 6 minutes, 18 seconds into today's launch, and we're getting into terminal count. So let's zoom in. So
nice.
Range continues to be green. Weather continues to be gorgeous. We are getting into the final stages of propellant loading on both stages of Starship. Again, we're putting liquid oxygen, liquid methane on both the booster and the ship. Ship has main tanks. It also has those small header tanks in the very top and the nose of the vehicle that we're going to fill up. We're going to close out on the ship at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds before launch, and then the booster at about 2 minutes and 50. Once we're completely done prop loading, you've got about 11.5 million pounds of liquid propellant on board both stages. Then we start to get the pad itself ready for launch. We do what's called pushbacks. That's you're clearing out all of those propellant feed lines that have been flowing from the tank farm into the tower, into the vehicles, push it back into the tank farm, and then we also start purging all of those lines with an inert gas, just getting it ready for launch. We'll do final thrust vector steering controls on our Raptor engines at about T-minus 100 seconds and then T-minus 60 seconds. If a hold is needed, shocking change, it's now going to come at T-minus 60 seconds. That's a new time. We've balanced out a couple of our final checks that happened before liftoff, and we moved them a little bit earlier before we start flying, so that time is now at T-minus 60. That's the point where we can pause to wait. We'll only hold there if there's an issue, and we can recycle back.
Ooh.
Minus 60 seconds passes, a number of events will occur in rapid succession. Both the ship and booster will configure their comm systems for flight and will rapidly run leak checks on gas and fluid tanks. The booster will also go to internal power, and its engines will get its final priming for launch, while the ship's engines begin their ascent bleed profile, and it arms the automatic flight safety system. There's a lot of mechanical activations on the tower side as well, with one critical step, unlatching the quick disconnect feeding propellant into the ship.
And once T-minus 60 seconds has passed, there is still the ability to rapidly recycle the count under certain conditions back to that T-minus 60 second hold point. We can hold there and assess what happened and if teams can proceed again to T0. We've got about 5 to 8 minutes of hold time, and that will largely be driven by the propellant temperatures that we see on the vehicle while holding. The flame diverter on pad 2, which you can see the side profile of it there on your screen, that activates at T-minus 17 seconds, and if we trigger a hold after that, it will result in a scrub for the day. So we're now just under 3.5 minutes until liftoff. If you've recently joined, we're planning to deploy 20 of our Starlink V3 satellites. These are real V3s on board, so that's exciting. We also would like to perform a Raptor in-space relight as well.
That's right, and actually on the screen now you're seeing an awesome view of our pad and the clouds that you're seeing coming off of our fuel tank farm, all now being used for its second time here for Flight 13.
Topping off the tanks.
All right, so
2
we're
minutes, 50
through the
seconds.
3-minute mark. So we should be closing out prop load on the booster any second now, and then the closeouts on the ship will come just a little bit after that. Again, we're looking a little over 11.5 million pounds of propellant on both of these vehicles. We are not currently tracking any holds on the board, which is always good news. Reminder, we have that built-in hold at T-minus 1 minute. We're only going to stop there if we run into an issue where we need a couple of minutes to hang out. But right now, we have no holds on the board. So a lot on deck for Starship, the second flight of Starship version 3, booster version 3, Raptor 3. Looking to get off the pad here in 2 minutes.
Yes, let's do it. Oh man, this is beautiful. Every time it happens. They're just topping off the tanks now, and then everything should be ready. We gotta wait out for the 60
so we are
second
closing
hold.
the fill drain valves for both vehicles. So we have finished out our propellant loading.
Yep. That's
33 Raptor engines right there at the bottom of the booster getting ready to light up. Final wiggle checks happening now. You can see those inner 13 engines moving.
Let's go.
Those are the ones that Super Heavy is going to be using to steer, do all its maneuvers. We just got through those. Okay, so we are 1 minute, 20 seconds away, counting down. We're going to
get rid of the
listen
countdown
in. Again, not tracking a hold, so
count.
we should move right past T-minus 1 minute. If we recycle back to it, we'll figure out why, and then we'll continue counting down. So let's go. T-minus 1 minute. Let's listen in. Let the rocket do the talking. See if we can get a Starship off the pad today.
Let's do this. Okay, so we're in the 1 minute hold now.
We did
We'll
trigger
have to
a hold.
see what happens? Thank you everybody so much for joining us. If you haven't done so,
So
yet,
again, we have
like,
this hold built in. We've got a couple of checkouts that are going to happen on the vehicle and the pad. that we've got to clear. A lot of it's tied to essentially the different pressures that are in the systems that are feeding prop into the vehicles. Looks like we are getting ready to reset that hold though. And the clock is rolling.
Like the stream if you haven't done so yet. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to the channel. Enjoy the show. 50 seconds. 50 seconds. This is traditionally the moment when I lose everything. We are progressing. Everything is looking nominal. That plane over there is going to get the show of its life. Let's go. Come on, everybody. 17 seconds, the flame diverter kicks in. There it goes. Okay, 7 seconds. All right, let's go, let's go, let's go. 4. And ignition. That wasn't a abort. That wasn't a abort. That was an abort.
And we did trigger a hold right at startup there. You saw we got a hold on the booster.
Had an ignition though. We had a short ignition. So that is
stick
likely
with us for a second.
That is likely a scrub. That is likely a scrub. I
We
definitely
did trigger
saw
a
some
hold
sort of
on the
ignition.
booster that aborted our liftoff as we were starting to light those Raptor engines. As a reminder, since we already turned the diverter on, we are going to be scrubbed for the day. The team's already starting to pull for offload of both vehicles, so starting to get the prop off. We'll take a little bit of time to look into what triggered that abort. Usually we'll take some data review for all of our teams. But again, we did abort on the startup of the booster. So we weren't tracking any holds moving in to those final seconds into that final minute. But that is going to be a scrub for the day. So the team's now moving into commodity offload. We're going to take the methane and the oxygen off of both Starship and Super Heavy.
It makes me age by a year every time.
So not the end result you're looking for, but we've got vehicle there still on the pad, and they're going to get these commodities offloaded. We'll take some time, dig into what triggered that abort once the booster was igniting to launch, and then we'll figure out what our path forward is going to be. Again, if you're just jumping in, we're not going to be launching today. We got all the way down to startup, triggered a hold on the booster, and that shut down the engines right as they were starting to ignite.
It might even mean some engine
so
damage.
at this point, they're going to get into offload. We're going to get all the methane, all the oxygen off the vehicle, and then we'll figure out next steps. So no Starship launch today. We'll dig in with the teams, figure out what happened, and figure out when our next attempt is going to be. And obviously, we're going to keep you updated as well. So we'll dig into what our recycle time is, when we're going to be able to try again. Be sure to follow us on X at SpaceX. We're going to share updates there as soon as more information becomes available and when we can get back for flying. So thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully, we'll be back real soon for Flight 13 and another attempt to get Starship off the pad. Thanks, everybody.
No worries. Thank you so much. Okay, let's switch back to our cameras real quick. So we had a problem, just to recap this, it's an unknown problem with the booster. The problem I see here now is that they were already in engine startup, and if they have to abort quickly, we saw that on flight 12 with booster 19, they had to abort a static fire. And they had a rapid shutdown of the engines, and that caused some engine trouble as well. So they ended up rolling it back, replacing a few engines and bringing it back out. I don't want to jinx it. But if that is what happened here, we're looking at a delay of a few days. If that's not what happened here, we might see another launch attempt tomorrow. Of course, we'll keep you updated as much as we can. We're at 39,000 people watching right now. If you have a mouse or if you have a touch screen, give us that quick like and subscribe to the channel if you can, if you want to, if you appreciate what we're doing here. That is all the return we are looking for, because it makes our work way easier. We have quite a few questions left, so if you want to, Cris, we can go through a few of those questions. There's really nothing we can analyze right now. Daniel just gave us the whole gist. It's an unknown problem with the booster right now. They are going to go through their data, they're going to analyze it, and then we're going to get an information from SpaceX really quick. For now, I would, because this is kind of the worst thing that can happen to somebody who's waiting for a launch is a scrub. So I am really, like, it leaves this feeling in you, this urge that wasn't satisfied because there wasn't any launch. So I'm up for answering quite a few more questions if you're up for it, Cris. I would love to. All right, and come back on screen, and then we're going to see if we can go through a few more questions. If you have a question, you can either write #question into the chat or connect it to a super chat. The super chats are being bumped up because the people that support us directly are very important to us, and so you get a place higher up in the list. With that said, the next one would be, so we had Timmy just now with the feasibility of the heat shield. That was just before SpaceX went live. Next we have 3D Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us again. 3D Daniel is a very talented guy from the community who is right now very busy with his training. He does a job training, so he does a little less, which we all hate, because he does very nice animations about spaceflight. So 3D Daniel gave us a super chat and he said, "Hey Felix, can we bring the question on screen as well? Hey Felix, I hope you do great. Can you not wait for Flight 14? I still do 3D stuff, but not that often. Apprenticeship," yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Daniel and I chat quite a bit. So Daniel, all the best for your apprenticeship. We do miss your 3D stuff, but real life is more important, I get it. And so don't worry about that. Yeah, Flight 14, hopefully in a month from now, and plus at least one day, as we just saw. SpaceX is recycling, unfortunately. There has not been a flight. There was a problem with a booster, so we are looking at a little bit of a delay. I hope it's just one day, but I'm kind of curious to know if that was one of those fast aborts. Because a fast abort basically means you cut the engine off, which is not how you... It's kind of comparable if you would... Imagine you have a computer, a personal computer at your desk, and you turn it off by unplugging it. That's basically what a quick shutdown does with an engine. It is not very healthy. You should be able to turn it off so that it goes through a sequence of shutting down. If you just unplug the engine and say stop right now, it's not very healthy for the engine. So I'm really hoping that the engines didn't take damage, because then we're looking at them rolling the booster back, which would be unfortunate. But right now, we have no information. SpaceX had none for us, and they just went offline, and we'll have to wait and see. Maybe for a tweet or an X post, as it's called right now. They're really quick. If you don't follow SpaceX yet on X, or What About It, because we always have the information as well, it's very worth it, because SpaceX in the end now owns X, and so it is a really good source for up-to-date information from SpaceX, from all the other companies that are connected to it. All right, so we have 3D Daniel, thank you so much. We have CCFC Skyblue 85, thank you so much for your super chat. Watching from Coventry, England, so it is in the middle of the night at your place now. I hope you're still there. I have stopped following other channels as they have nothing on What About It. Thank you so much. Your content is by far the best. Hoping for a successful launch. Keep up the good work. I'll gladly take that compliment, but there are others in the scene that are doing a fantastic job. In front of everybody, NASA Spaceflight, they're everywhere. It's absolutely amazing what they're doing. And part of our research is from them, and part of their research is likely from us. It's always a bit of a synergy. Oh, this is Jordan in the air. So yeah, a little shout out there to SPI helicopters. If you're confused, before I always shouted out for Redline helicopters, and now there was a name change. So now it's called SPI helicopters, but it's exactly the same thing. And Jordan was up in the air again, of course, trying to get those shots. Look at this And this is just his quick upload. So we're going to have plenty, even though there wasn't a launch, we're going to have plenty really cool material for our supporters. If you want to become a supporter, just join us on Patreon or click the join button here, and you get access to, like, I don't know how many posts per week. And on average, one per day, I'd say, or something like that. Full galleries, everything. And part of that is going to be Jordan. If you are ever at Starbase, if there is a launch or not, go to spihelicopters.com and book a flight if you have the money. It is not the cheapest thing, but if you split it up with a few people, it goes down to like $150 or so for the most incredible 2 hours you can imagine. The whole thing, the build up, the excitement, getting into the helicopter, actually taking off from South Padre Island and taking your flight over to Starbase, and then seeing all that stuff from the air is absolutely incredible. It is worth every cent. I've done it a few times now. Every time I'm down there and I'm lucky enough to have the weather right, I'm sitting in that helicopter. It is absolutely amazing. And you might even be lucky to have Jordan sitting next to you. It does happen. So that is his view from the aboard today. Holy cow. I'm so hoping that the booster is okay, that there wasn't a problem with a quick shutdown. That is my big thing in my head right now. So yeah. Thank you so much, SkyBlue85. It is very, very much appreciated. And we are not going to stop doing this anytime soon. It is absolutely amazing. It is so much fun. As much fun as you have watching our broadcasts and our episodes, the entire team, Cris included, we're talking about this so often.
Yeah.
We have so much fun doing this. So thank you, guys. You have anything to add, Cris?
No, it's just a pleasure. It's so amazing to be able to do this for a living. Yeah, to be able to just wake up, think about space, and the last thought of the day is also space. And it's really amazing. And we're living in times where each morning, when you just take your device and look at the news of the last 12 hours, basically, something is bound to have happened.
Every time we go on a break with the team, it feels like SpaceX is extra speeding it up. It's absolutely crazy. Okay, so then this happens, and this happens, and that, and that. And I mean, you and I both produce the episodes, so you know it. How many times do we leave stuff out because we can't even talk about it? Because
basically
it's just
every
too much.
single time. As long as there's not just investigations of mishaps where there's periods of time where they can't do anything, there is not a chance to deliver all that has happened. And we're doing
not in the detail we're doing
twice a week already. That's the crazy part about it.
And then there's people saying, "Why don't you just do 3?" It's SpaceX posted that?
Elon
posted. Okay, so hopefully in a few days, Elon Musk posted that a few of the engines didn't want to start up, which triggered an abort, which is now, of course, leading to an investigation what happened to those engines. But that very, very likely, if you're reading between the lines, he already says a few days. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't suggest that there's going to be a launch tomorrow, which is just what happens if you have a brand new design on the pad again. Like Kate Tice even called it Flight 2 during the broadcast, which I liked very much. Because on one side, of course, it is Flight 13 of Starship, but it is Flight 2 of version 3, and version 3 has so many updates in it. It looks kind of the same as the old Starships, but that's basically it. The entire internal structure, everything is changed. So yeah, that'll mean they'll lift it off the pad. I'll just predict. I'm looking into my crystal ball here right now. They're going to detank. They're going to lift the booster and the ship off the pad. They're going to roll both back to the mega base. They're going to inspect, probably change engines on the booster, prepare everything for flight again. Maybe even do another static fire if they have to. So we're looking at least a few days. But the good thing about this, and there we go again. That's the abort. That's interesting. Thank you. This is good. These are. I think I definitely saw an ignition, an initial ignition. Let's take a look. 7 seconds, there you go, flame diverter system in, and then you're looking for a little bit of a glow. And there it is. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My brain was so buzzed when it happened. Yeah, there was definitely an ignition, all that stuff that you saw screaming out of those flame trenches on both sides. That's the ignition. That is not the flame diverter system. That is the blasting.
Yeah.
All but yeah, but 4 engines is a lot. So all but 4 engines didn't light up. That doesn't sound like much, and the Starship would have probably even been able to reach its flight path with this. But if anything else happens, it goes backwards again.
Yeah, there was the middle ring.
Do not want that. It could the middle ring.
Yeah, it was 4 of them, all of them on the middle ring.
So there is some problem with the middle ring, with the engines in the middle ring. All the engines that failed apparently were in the middle ring. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what SpaceX is finding, but we're very likely looking at least the middle of next week, I'd say, something like that, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So yeah, well, that's
Space
back to the
is
roots.
hard.
Back to the roots for us as well, because now we want to bring you an episode. So just to give you a little bit of backstage talk here, we of course had an episode prepared that talks about the launch. So there wasn't a launch. So now we're going to sit down. I am going to do that today. As soon as we cut our stream, I'm going to sit down. Cris is going to sit down. We're going to start writing and researching and putting a script together and then recording something new so that it probably comes out on Saturday. We are not going to make tomorrow happen. That is almost impossible because we need to. You would be surprised to know how much time actually goes into each and every episode. I've tried to estimate it before. It's likely easily around 150 hours per video of production time from several people, and that's twice a week. So that's 300 hours of work time per week, and so on and so forth, that the team does, of course, across a few people. I don't do that alone, but yeah, and that's the machinery that's already working in the background, us getting some information, getting new renders together. I'm going to shoot a message to Elliot telling him to make an animation that shows a booster lighting up with 4 engines missing in the middle ring, and so on and so forth, so that we can present and explain it, and so on and so forth. And it is the nicest thing to do as a job. So again, thank you everybody for supporting us. It's a joy. I didn't do anything else before I started the channel. I was just not paid for it. So thank you guys so much for giving us this absolutely amazing journey together with you guys. Okay, bring the questions back up. I want to really go through a few more here. We have so many. And then again, like I said before, we're going to do another video when we have the time. Don't expect it in a day or two. But I'm going to sit down again with Cris, and we're going to go through the questions that we can't do today. So this one is easy. Skadriol, thank you so much for your super chat. You guys rock. Exactly, you guys rock. Thank you so much for the support. It is much appreciated. We have Leonard Ladeira 8082. Thank you so much for your super chat. Keep doing these videos. You guys rock. Thank you so much for the support. It helps so much. Jordan, if you're listening, your gyro stabilizer is getting closer. Albert Trudeau, thank you so much for your super chat. Y Rocks, and the fans of Y Rock even more, thank you so much for the support. We have Cedric Palm 469, thank you so much for your super chat. Thanks for all you do for us space fans. Big fan. Keep up the great work. We intend to. Don't worry, we are not going to stop. As long as you keep watching and as long as you keep liking and subscribing, we are going to keep making these videos. It is an incredible thing. And not just making the videos, being part of the community and having, it's a pretty humble feeling. Thank you guys, seriously. I've had moments when I teared up during live streams because it's so close to my heart, so thank you. We have Jonathan Smith, 2898, thank you so much for your super chat. Are they considering building starships in Boca Chica and then having a mission where they actually launch a payload but land in Florida to move them? What do you think, Cris? What does your crystal ball tell you?
I would say, yeah, it would of course be technically possible, but I don't think it would make that much sense to do it. We'll see in the future. At the moment, I would say that pretty much the operation goes forward where it started and just comes back there. But I don't know if they have to transfer something, they can do it along the lines, but I don't know.
Why do you think it wouldn't make any sense? That's curious.
Because I think that just like to do it to transport stuff from A to B, to transport the actual flight hardware, it's probably easier and cheaper to do it by barge and to not use the engines.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he was talking about a mission that launches from Starbase and lands at Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, but it has to move them. Yeah. So yeah, of course, the fact that you just catch it in Florida and have it started in Texas, that's absolutely possible,
Yeah.
of course. But I would never expect them to do it as a transfer flight.
No.
Hardware.
Many people have asked, why do they even use the barges? Why don't they just fly them over there? It's because it's really, really expensive to fly a Starship, and it also produces wear and tear. It consumes commodities. You have to refurbish your pad. You have so many people involved in a launch. A barge is just way easier.
Yeah.
It's just a ship. You transport your Starship that is ready for a flight with the same SPMTs, slightly different because they need to do a horizontal transfer, but it's not a big difference. And you just roll it over to the port. You load it onto your barge. You ship it to which takes what, 2 days?
Mm-hmm.
From Boca Chica to Florida. It's not a long journey. It is very smooth to the Gulf. If there's no bad weather, it's just a very smooth sail, way better than on roads because that constantly shakes the prototype. And if you're on a barge, it's just soft rocking. It's perfect.
And you can scale it up as well. I mean, if they need some more barges compared to what the program costs, they literally cost like nothing.
It's exactly. And that's the reason why it just makes more sense to not fly them, but send them via ship. It would be quicker to fly them. It would be spectacular to fly them. But it doesn't make any sense. If you're producing 3 Starships per week or so, and the same at the Cape, I don't even know how many they're going to produce. Am I choppy on the stream?
A bit, or is it me?
Could be.
No, you just froze.
Back-end problem. I hope you guys can see me clearly.
Yeah.
But in the end, it just doesn't make any sense to have it on the barge. To have it fly. The barge is just way better. It's cheaper. It's easier on everything, and if you're not under time pressure, it doesn't make any sense to fly it over there. But there are going to be missions that launch from Starbase and potentially land at the Cape. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah, sure. If it makes sense for the mission, definitely.
I do think there's more going on here than just. Can you see me? Can you clearly see me?
I can clearly see you, but you
super choppy right now.
keep chopping a bit. Yeah. Oh, okay.
There was a download going in the background. It should be fixed now. All right. We were already preparing for the episode in the background, so I should be better now.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. No worries. It was my wife in the off saying I stopped the download. So that is no problem. That's all fixed. But yeah, that's the question answered with the mission. I'm sure there's going to be a mission that does that launches out of Boca Chica, out of Starbase, and flies to the Cape. But just for transporting them, it does not make any sense. You're not in a hurry that much that you would do that you would just waste so much money and flight time, because each rocket only has so much flight time on it from production to retirement, and you don't want to waste that for a transfer. So I don't think that is ever going to happen, even though it sounds cool.
I was just thinking about if you could even do that with the booster with the distance, or if you would have to go orbital, which you can't because you don't have a heat shield.
No, I've done a calculation. You should be able to reach the Cape only with a booster and only with a Starship, but it still doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, of course.
It's you do not like that's not how you do things. So yeah, even though it would be cool and it sounds logical at first, if you crunch all the numbers, it just doesn't make any sense. We have Lee Fields 2C C2C. Thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you for this channel, Felix. I can't get enough of it, and we can't get enough videos out. I know we would love to do 5 per week, but it's just not possible. That was random wife popping in. Now I can hear her laughing from across the entire house. Yeah, that's the stuff you don't see that's the back end that I see here. Thank you so much for your support. That's all to be said. I'm very, very glad that we have so many nice people in the community supporting us. Otherwise, we couldn't do it. So thank you very, very much for doing that. We have Justin T2342. May have already been covered, but when is the soonest we could see a Starship catch? Well,
Flight 14. Possibly.
But it's kind of like fusion reactors. For 50 years, they said in 10 years we're going to have it. And it's kind of the same with the Starship Catch. For 2 years, they said in 2 flights we're going to have it, but only if those 2 flights are good. They've already gone down to 1 flight. So initially, SpaceX said we need 2 good flights with Starship to do a catch attempt. Now they're down to saying we need 1 good flight with the version 3 Starship to do a catch attempt. So if Flight 13 ticks off every box, if everything works, if the engines work reliably during flight, this was just on a board, so that's all good. But during flight, everything needs to work. And if it does, the next flight is going to see a catch. If the ship doesn't say anything in space like, oh my God, I'm done, then they're just going to do something else. They're going to aim for the Indian Ocean again. But if everything aligns on that flight after the good flight, we should see a catch. So theoretically, Flight 14. Practically, nobody knows, because we have to wait for Flight 13 to tick every box. Trust me, I want to see it badly at this point, but it takes time. And as long as it does happen, it doesn't matter if it happens on this flight or the next or the one after that. What's important is that they reach the goal. We have CGD YouTube. Thank you so much for your generous donation. Did you have fun and did you buy any stock? Yes, yes.
Check.
And this is not financial advice. I am not allowed to do that. But yes, I both. And I'm constantly having fun with this. Literally, there is not a moment when I sit down for work on the channel where I'm thinking, never. I'm always ending up having way too much research for way too little episode. And then Stefanie, our editor, is always like ripping out her hair because we're coming with another 28 or 30-minute script. And she's like, are you kidding me? And so on and so forth. Yeah, she says she has a coffee IV and that should do the trick. That's just how it is. There's so much that the space industry does right now. It is impossible to cover it all. But yeah, we always have fun with it. Jeffrey Lowe, 7368, thank you so much for your super chat. I really like that you mentioned doing a lightning round, yes, for answering super chats that you don't get around to. I sent a $50 super chat last launch that didn't get answered, and I get you can't get to do all of them. Yeah, that's the problem. It's as soon as these broadcasts get so big, it's almost impossible to answer all of them. But I think that lightning round, and you're not going to be in it now because I just answered it, is going to be, it's a good idea. I thought about that for a long time, and it's easily produced because it doesn't need fancy editing. It's just us sitting down, and why shouldn't we do it? Yeah. So yeah, anything that I can't answer today, and there is quite a few, we're going to answer in that lightning round. That's a good idea. Okay, we have next up Jeffrey again. Thank you so much. Also, thank you for covering all these launches and going into detail about how all this works. Been following you.
Should be following
you for many years and appreciate all your team does. Thank you so much. Again, it's 7 years at this point, and it has not gone. Like, I've had quite a few positions in my life before I became a YouTuber. I did all sorts of stuff. Even in higher positions, I had some sort of career, but I was the guy who didn't want to go to work every day. I got in my car, I drove to work, and it was every time it was this barrier that I had to go through to make myself work. That is gone. So I am so very, very happy. Thank you guys for supporting us. It's the best thing to ever happen. Outdoor Adventure Craft, thank you so much for your super chat. Hello and happy launch from Russell's Montreal style streamies. Did you want to have a shout? Been having a great summer. Thank you so much for your support. It is much appreciated. We have Lordoc. Thank you so much for your super chat. Big fan of SpaceX from Dubai. Go Flight 13. I have not ever been to Dubai. It's on my list. It's a fascinating country, and I really have to visit at some point. My aunt is there all the time, and she always says, "Oh, I'm in Dubai again," but I've never been. So thank you for sending this in. I really have to go to Dubai at some point. We have Philips Prosty 2644. Thank you so much for your super chat. So huge question. So if SpaceX ships the Starship stages to the Cape, obviously they won't do this with the engines attached, how will they static fire both stages at the Cape before flight? Why wouldn't they, with the engines, they can attach the engines. It should not be a big problem. I'm pretty sure they're going to ship it flight ready, ship it to the Cape, and then check everything, of course, after the transport, but they're going to ship it assembled. They do the same with the upper stages for Falcon 9 across the entire country right now. It's nuts. They are traveling from, what is it? Not McGregor. Yeah, it is McGregor. The end testing for the Falcon 9 upper stages is done in McGregor, Texas, and then they ship it all the way to the Cape, and then they light them up and they ship them with engines. So they can absolutely static fire at Starbase, ship the thing to the Cape, do an end check, and then launch it there. That's what they're going to do, which is incredible. It still is, and I'm going to be standing at the port so often when these Starships come back in, because they're going to, I recently, I was sitting there for breakfast in the port, and you'll thank me later, the barge that they're going to use for that is in the port right now. I think it still is, because they're flashing it out. So they have the door open and you can see them work inside when you're just standing there. So if you're close to the Cape, because you're driving past, or you're going to the Keys, or you're taking a cruise out of here, absolutely make sure to go to the port and check it out, because there's always something you can see there. A Falcon 9 booster being unloaded from one of the drone ships, or you'll thank me later, sitting there right now being flashed out for the first Starship transports. It's super amazing. And now I forgot what I wanted to say. So yeah, no, that thing, as soon as they start bringing these Starships, the first and second stages, they're going to bring both. They're going to unload those at the port. You bet I'm going to be standing there, because it's literally you're right next to it when you're just standing on the other side of the port where there's public access, and you can see SpaceX unload Starships on the other side. I'm so, when they mentioned it again on the stream, how far they are with the 2 pads, or actually with the 3 pads that they're building there right now. I can't wait for SpaceX to launch something out of the Cape. Finally, I love Starbase, but Starbase, you are so far away, especially if you have kids in the back seat. So I am very much looking forward to that. Okay, I think we can stop at this point. We have a little bit of production to do. As traditionally, we are going to leave the stream on for a moment, because you're still sitting here, you're still chatting. We still have 7,200 people watching this together with us. If you haven't done so yet, just push that little like button, push that little subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a cent, and it helps us a lot. If you are not yet, become a channel member, become a patron. For $1 a month, you get so much stuff. You get all sorts of galleries and updates and behind the scenes, and it is really, really worth it. And we are constantly ramping it up and bringing even more stuff for our patrons to make it your money's worth. It is super important for us, because that fan funding, how it is called behind the scenes, is the most stable income source we have. Everything else fluctuates, but on you guys, we can actually rely. Literally. So thank you so much for being reliable, and thank you so much for watching again with us. We'll keep you updated as soon as we know something about a new launch date, but that is likely going to be next week. I would be very surprised if anything happens. Tomorrow is out of the question, probably. The weekend is as well. So it's very likely going to be next week at the earliest, but we'll keep you updated as always. The episode is coming out on Saturday, not tomorrow, because it's just time-wise not possible, but it's going to be good as always, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.